Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and you may be asking why Whiteboard Kun is already out. Well, because we have a lot of comments before we go into this episode, and one specific comment I was like, I gotta break this one down, because as soon as it was said, I was like, oh my god. So yeah, so we're on episode 22 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's the director's cut. So 28 minutes of goodness. I'm so freaking excited. Last episode was the first director's cut we watched, and I was like, mwah, piece de resistance. I'm like, I am so excited to watch these last 5 episodes. We still have End of Evangelion. We still have the 3 rebuilds with Thrice Upon a Time. We also have maybe Death and Rebirth. If I end up watching Death and Rebirth, because I didn't get a chance to reply back to their comment, but I saw a comment on Patreon right before I got on here, and they were talking about how the death part of Death and Rebirth is basically like a big conglomeration of the series as a whole, and then Rebirth is like the first third of End of Evangelion. And I was like, okay, I don't want to watch that before End of Evangelion, because I want to watch End of Evangelion as its own thing. So I think if I do watch Death and Rebirth, because the completionist in me is like nagging, being like, you gotta watch it, it's there. And so I may watch it after End of Evangelion and just do like a quick reaction of it, like an edited reaction or whatever to it, in between End of Evangelion and the first rebuild, if I get time. We'll figure it out as we go. We still got like 5 more weeks before we figure out what to do with that, but I'm thinking about it. But I kind of want to watch it just to see cinematically what it looks like. But if I do end up watching Death and Rebirth, I will watch it after Evangelion. I know that's not in order, but the fact that End of Evangelion I'm going to watch anyway, I don't want to get a third of the way through Death and Rebirth and then be like, oh, End of Evangelion. No. So this is going to be a long intro because I have a lot of things to say, but just consider this a mini recap because we're going into the last 5 episodes of this series, director's cut. I'm nervous. I'm really nervous. And I'm recording this a little bit ahead because I'm actually going to be out of town this weekend. So I usually watch this like on a Friday night if I can, or a weekend night, and I'm not going to be able to do this now. So I'm going to incorporate comments from episodes 19 and 20. 20 from Patreon, 19 from YouTube. And then for the next episode, I already saw, like, when I was about to record this, there was already, like, a ton of comments for episodes 21 and 20, and I was like, I don't have time to go through them all, so I'll just bring those up next episode, 23. And any comments that I get left over from, like, episodes 25 and 26, if we end up bringing them into End of Evangelion, we can do that too, so it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But first and foremost, before we go any further, please, no spoilers. I'm probably going to put my little Patreon, my community post from YouTube into the description below on YouTube here, saying, please do not spoil me. If you're not sure what counts as a spoiler for me, it's in the post down below. Because I know that as we're getting into these last 5 episodes, stuff's going to start coming out the fan. I want to be surprised. I want to figure it out on my own. If there's something I missed by episode 26, if there's something I still didn't get, or by End of Evangelion rather, if there's something I still haven't gotten, then we can talk about it. But until then, I don't want y'all confirming or deconfirming theories, pointing out any hints, clues, spoilers, anything that I missed. Don't tell me. Let me be ignorant until the end. That's all I ask. Just let me go in blind. Whatever I miss, we'll miss it until the end. And I'll probably pick it back up and figure it out once we go back, but we shall see. But I got a lot of comments, so let's just dive into those before this gets any longer than it's going to be. It's going to be like a 15-minute intro, I already know, or 20 minutes. I'll probably have a thing down below to when the actual reaction starts. So Simon Lemon talked about how in episode 4 so far is the only Eva episode in which Anno did not write. So up until episode 21, Anno was the only episode he didn't write was episode 4, which was the Hedgehog's Dilemma. And one of the writers felt that Shinji needed more development at the beginning. I'm actually glad they wrote the Hedgehog's Dilemma because that's a really good episode. And yeah, it does give you a lot more context into Shinji's character, which I agree. From the start, we need more context about him moving forward to get how he develops as we go. And episode 4 is one that we refer back to a lot in this series. So I guess Anno liked it because he refers back to it quite a lot. Siska Ozetta talks about how Ida sees war as heroic and does not realize all of the other aspects that come with it. Like, Ida just sees, like, the glorified, heroic version of war. He doesn't see the shit that Shinji and them have seen, which it could be why he seems betrayed by Shinji in episode 19 when Shinji decides to leave. But, again, Ida's looking at it from one specific perspective, and Shinji's seeing it from an entirely different one. Also, Llewellyn kind of ties onto that in their comment, saying that in Hemingway's novel For Whom the Bell Tolls, it addresses situations like these and looking at how both sides of a war can be equally viewed as cruel. And I'm like, yeah, because we had that big dilemma in episode 19 of like, did Shinji do the right thing? Did Gendo do the right thing? Were they both kind of right, both kind of wrong? And yeah, that's kind of the answer. It really depends on your perspective and who you empathize more with. I empathize more with Shinji in this case, but I get where Gendo is coming from. I just think Gendo's a heartless monster. And so it's hard for me, but he's not so heartless. He was, I think, I was looking at a comment, I didn't get a chance to respond to it yet, but someone had put on, I think it might have been Alex Cornejo, saying that Gendo wasn't always a monster, he just became one. And I'm like, yeah, he became one, and Yui's death definitely spurred that forward. And we found out that Dr. Akagi, Ritsuko's mom, was tied to that as well. So there's that. Speaking of Alex Cornejo, here's my next comment. The episodes were coming out at a deadline, and that could be one of the reasons that they got past the censors. So like the sex scene in episode 20, all that it could be because they were working so close to the deadline, the censors just didn't have time to say, no, go back and do it. They're like, fine, whatever, just put it out there. And someone else commented that a lot of Western shows do that same kind of formula too, which is interesting. Also, Anno seems a bit like, I like that Alex made the comparison of Anno to Gendo. Like Anno creating this series, the censors were like, well, we can't get rid of him now, so we just had to finish what we started, right? So it's like, I've officially, I don't know in the Matrix if it was the red or blue pill, but I've taken the pill that we're going to move on further into Neon Genesis. We're not backing out now. So we've made it this far, damn it. We can't stop, right? So the radio show also could illustrate the person that was sending in the letter to the radio show, the big conversation that Ritsuko and Masato were listening to, could illustrate how Shinji wants someone that has qualities of both a mother and a lover in his life when it comes to Masato, Asuka, and Rei. Because Alex was saying that in the radio show, the person who wrote the letter was having sex with someone, but wanted them to be involved with them in a non-sexual way in the end, like giving them, non-romantic needs that they had. And so maybe Shinji is wanting that too. He wants somebody that can be both a lover and a mother to him. Although it's weird that I don't like thinking of Shinji wanting anything sexual with Masato. So I thought it also could suggest the man in the radio was wanting something more non-romantic to be filled by the other person. And it could be tied to Masato and Kaji because we see them in the next scene. So I thought that letter thing could also be talking about Kaji, and that him and Masato, specifically Masato, want a relationship that's not just sexual, but right now all they're getting is that sexual relationship. The other needs aren't being fulfilled, but that's what they want. So I thought that was a really cool comparison. Could be both. I do like the contrast too that Alex pointed out of Kaji being the tactful spy and Masato is the brash soldier. Kaji's like trying to be covert and be like, let's not talk, we might be wiretapped. And Masato's like, I just want to know who's behind it all. Like she just spares no expense. She like cuts through the red tape, right? So that was really good. Christopher Peterson noted about some EVA 01 questions. I did have these questions too. I didn't write it on Whiteboard Coon, but I did have these questions as well. Like, how is Yui? I guess at this point, we're just gonna flip it over because I want to write these questions down too. I may be down the rabbit hole into Neon Genesis at this point, and I can't get out. That's where we're at. So, okay, so we do have some questions that I want to note here. I think Christopher Peterson, you had some pretty good questions. So at this point, I'm going to flip Whiteboard Coon back over before we start the reaction. But questions I specifically have about the O1 unit. And when Christopher was pointing them out, I'm like, yes, those are really important questions to be asking at this point. I don't want answers in the comment section yet because I'm sure we'll get answers by the end of the series. But, so, how is Yui connected to the O1 unit? Again, I will figure these questions out as we go, but I'm just positing them now for the discussion later. So how is she connected to the O1 unit? We know that Yui is probably connected to the OO unit because that's the one they were working on in the flashback. But where does the O1 unit come in? Is there some kind of factor? Why does it cling to Shinji specifically? So if Yui's tied to the O1 unit, why? Why that one? Why not the OO unit? What's the deal? Shinji tried to connect with the OO unit, but it didn't gel nearly as much. So was the O1 unit around? That's another question. This wasn't Christopher's, but was the O1 unit the one that Yui was involved in at her death. We didn't get to see the EVA unit in the flashback when she died. We just saw Shinji looking out the window at it. So it could be that she was in the O1 unit and we just haven't seen it yet. So that part is still not clear to us. Is there a separate... So here's the thing. The EVA's will. Does it have a will of its own? Is Yui's will powering it? Does it need Shinji? Seems to, but we don't know the full extent of everything, right? And then, so, was it Shinji's decision to be reborn, or was Yui playing a part in it? So did Yui or Shinji really want Shinji to go back? So that's a question too for all that. So those were all really good questions. I may posit some more on here before we start the reaction, but those were all questions I thought that were really good, Christopher, for you to ask. Bright Girl. Bright Girl's been like doing biblical research, and I'll be honest, I have my great-grandmother's Bible, and I've actually started rereading it because I was like, I want to see some... I'm at the point where Lot's daughters basically get him drunk and sexually assault him. So fun times in your King James version of the Bible when you get to Genesis. Genesis is a trip. It's a fun time, but yeah, I'm at that part of it with Lot's daughters. And I'm like, wow, this is okay. Why not? But yeah, but anyway, Bright Girl was talking about, we had the numbers 316, 315, and 312 in episode 20. And so Bright Girl was saying that John 3:16 is, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, so that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, well, that's Gendo and Shinji. If we're looking at Gendo as like the god in this case, him sacrificing his only son Shinji to be one with this EVA unit, creating this Messiah-like figure that people can worship and he will be the savior to, seems pretty on the nose, right? So I'm like, interesting. I'm like, is Neon Genesis just like a biblical analogy and it's Shinji as Jesus that didn't want to die and be Jesus? I'm like, I don't know. It's interesting. But also, Bright Girl said that for 315, it was probably Genesis 315, and was talking about how it compares like intergenerational relationships and talks about how harm can be done from one generation to the next, which episode 21 ties really to, right? How the parents influence the child. It's pretty spot on. And then John 3:2, God, this one got me. John 3:12. This one says, do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. And I was like, oh, that applies to so many series. Not just Neon Genesis, Attack on Titan, Yona of the Dawn, like so many other series about good characters trying to do good in the world, dying, not because of what they did, but because of how their murderer saw them. Saying like, oh, you know too much, or you're trying to do good. Sorry, but that's against what I want. So my selfish needs are overpowering your selfless ones. So I was like, well, that kind of relates to Gendo and Shinji as well, and how their beliefs counteract. So I was like, okay, cool. That was great. So thank you, Bright Girl. I was like, those three, I was like, oh, these are great. Jimmy Russell brings up a thing about the dummy plugs. And this, I guess I'm going to tie this here too. But Jimmy Russell talked about the dummy plugs and was saying how, goodness, and saying how, so my computer doesn't fall asleep, I have to jiggle the mouse, saying the dummy plugs can mimic the pilots, but they can't mimic the soul. So the dummy plugs, I'm just going to say DP, do not mimic the soul, quote unquote, of the pilot. So Shinji is necessary for the O1 unit. Because yeah, they tried to use a dummy plug with Rei in the O1 unit, didn't work. When Shinji was in the O1 unit, the dummy plug worked great. So I'm like, you have the dummy plug that can override the muscle functions and the actual reactions of the pilot, but as far as the soul is concerned, to connect everything together, that pilot is needed. So that's interesting. Gendo said that Shinji, which is funny because at the beginning of the series, Gendo was like saying Shinji was a reserve pilot, that he was only there in case of Rei wasn't able to. So I'm like, so is it your plan all along to get Shinji there into the O1 unit? my question is, was Shinji always meant to be O1's pilot? Which would connect back to when the Evas were created, where they created with Shinji in mind, with Rei in mind, with Asuka in mind. I feel like Shinji and Rei are connected in the series, so that's why they can switch out. But Asuka, since she's separate and not related to either of them, she has to stick with the O2 unit. So is that the same thing with Toji? Toji would have had to have been in the O4 unit or the O5 unit. I'm like, maybe. So yeah, it's curious, but that seems to suggest that the souls, they have to find the compatible soul to fit the Eva unit, and then from there they can control them. So, interesting things to think about. I don't know. It's curious. There's lots of things that hopefully this episode will dive into, right? Do the pilots matter? Was the O1 unit always in need of Shinji? Gendo said he was reserve pilot for Rei, but maybe that was all a lie. I don't know. But you all are probably wondering what all this jazz is up here. That's because Melania the Severed, bless you, all Melania the Severed said was that the oral stage is one of 5 stages of psychological development. And I was like, okay, all right. And we all know the oral stage from last week's discussion and episode 20's discussion and how it's related. So all Melania said was, well, there are 5 stages of the psychosexual development according to Freud. We have 5 episodes left. That's all she said. And I was like, wait. So I went online, did a quick Google search, no big fancy research. And then the first website I found was talking about the Freudian 5 stages of psychosexual development. And then I just went the gambit and was like, oh my God, we've got to bring White Raccoon and talk about this because this is all getting trippy. And I want to bring this up before we start this reaction. And I know I've talked for 16 minutes, but bear with me. I've got 3 things left to say on here, but the majority of it's going to be this. So before I get to this, I guess I'll go ahead and say the other things. Melania the Severed also talked about destrudo. Destrudo is a Freudian term also mentioned in episode 20 that talks about a person's death drive or a drive towards death and destruction. It's the opposite of libido that seeks out pleasure. Libido seeks out pleasure and destrudo seeks out a death drive. So basically it is consisting of aggression, self-destruction, and what's called repetition compulsion. And that is when a person repeats events or circumstances over and over again to the point of even reenacting events and putting themselves in situations where it can happen again, which is literally Shinji and Gendo. Shinji has constantly gone back and repeated the same, whether it's been praise from his father or his father's abandoning him. He's repeated that over and over again and has tied it to other aspects of his life. And so Shinji's got some destrudo. He's got some death drive going on. And I thought that was really interesting that was pointed out because it relates to that whole situation with him and Gendo. But then Asuka, this last episode, episode 21 or episode 20, pointed out how Asuka's ego is tied to her as a pilot and her mental state is tied to it as well. And we saw in episode 20 and 21 how Shinji has he's similar to Asuka in the fact that he's tying his own self-worth to being a pilot as well. And I'm like, yeah, that's basically it. I was like, okay, cool, great. So I thought that was interesting to make that comparison. We haven't gotten a lot of Shinji Asuka comparison, but that one's pretty noteworthy. And then Rei's I'm Alive, she almost sounds disappointed, like she meant to sacrifice herself. I'm like, so she has a little self-worth as well. So I know this is running close to 20 minutes. Like I said, I'll put a thing in the description where you can tell where the reaction starts. But one more thing before we start, and this is kind of the biggest thing before we get into this episode, is those 5 stages of psychosexual development. Stage 1 is the oral stage, where it's concerned with trust, comfort, and oral stimulation to build relationships. The entire episode concerns imagery of Shinji nursing from his mother's breast, as well as Kaji and Masato having sex and presumably kissing, which is oral stimulation in both cases. And in both cases, they're building a relationship, with Shinji and his mother building a relationship, and then Kaji and Masato building a relationship. It also ties back to the sense that Ritsuko's mom, Akagi, was trying to build a relationship with Gendo by kissing him. Didn't work out. It also ties to the notion that we can think of Asuka trying to kiss Shinji in the past to build that relationship. Doesn't seem to have worked out. But yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. So episode 20 kind of embodies that whole thing of oral stimulation, and it carries down into episode 21 because we got the whole Ritsuko's mom making out with Gendo sort of thing. So episodes 20 and 21 have to do with, like, episode 21, it was mainly backstory and lore, but it does tie to that oral stage as well. So those two episodes are kind of connected to that first stage. This is where it gets interesting. So my theory is that the rest of these episodes are going to either deal with a subversion or going along with these other stages of the psychosexual development according to Freud, because Anno became really into psychosis and psychological things while making this series, so why not? So the second stage is the anal stage. It's not what you're thinking. You'd be like, well, shouldn't that be tied to Kaji and Masato? No. Get your mind out the gutters. No, it's the anal stage, which is talking about controlling bodily needs. And so they refer to in children, like infants, it's potty training. So it's getting them to where they can control their bladder, basically. But the idea of controlling your bodily needs is tied to a sense of accomplishment and independence. So, in this episode we're about to watch, is this going to be about Shinji breaking away from his father, saying screw it, and just doing his whole independence? Or is he going to be seeking accomplishment? How will that look? I don't know, but my theory is episode 22 is going to have to be concerning controlling the bodily needs, controlling the EVA unit maybe, and doing whatever Shinji wants. Now, whether that happens or not, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Stage 3 is the phallic phase, which is where men and women can develop, either guys can develop castration anxiety, which is where they feel they're inadequate as a man by society standards. Women can develop quote unquote penis envy, meaning they're envious of men in comparison based on societal standards. And then this part got me. This part I was like, oh my God, where are we headed with this, Neon Genesis? Because during the phallic phase, something that can happen is that men begin to fear, young boys begin to fear that their father's affection towards their mother is rivaling their own. And I was like, okay. And it says that during this phase, it could be that boys try to possess the mom and defeat the father. I was like, well, his mother is potentially inside this EVA unit that could possess him, could become one with him. He could use it to try to defeat Gendo. Will that happen in episode 23? I don't know, but I'm going to mark it down. That's my hypothesis, so who knows? But also during this phallic thing, there's also this concept called womb envy that's talked about by a person that's analyzed Freud. And she said that womb envy is when men feel inferior to women because they cannot bear children. But I thought you could tie it to Neon Genesis because Shinji is constantly surrounded by women who are accomplished, like Ritsuko and Masato and Asuka and Rei, and he may feel inferior to them because he's the only guy stuck in this. There ain't a sausage fest in Neon Genesis. It's a lot of girls. And then there's Shinji. So that's interesting. So maybe episode 23. We'll see. And episode 24, I thought could tie to the latent period, which is a period of social development and exploration. Now that part seems like you've had all this crazy shit happen up here, so you're like, wait, we're going to just go into this latent period where there's social development and exploration at the last part of the series. But there's a part there that says that sometimes teenagers during adolescence can get stuck in the latent period. They get stuck here and they cannot move forward from childhood to adulthood. So I was like, okay, could this episode, then episode 24, refer not only to Shinji, but other adult characters we've talked about in this series that don't have maturity of adults? They're still kind of stuck in this immature phase. Could be, I don't know. And then I laughed really hard at this. The final stage is the genital stage. The goal is to restore your balance in life. And if you complete all 5 of these psychosexual development phases successfully, the source said that you would end up being well-balanced, warm, and caring. So, episodes 25 and 26, guys, we're getting a happy ending. He's going to complete all these steps great, and then he's going to come out of this being a well-balanced, warm, and caring individual. This just spoiled the ending. It's going to be a happy one. No death and destruction. Angels, forget about him. We don't have to worry about him. Shinji's got this. He's got this, guys. It's going to be okay. So yeah. I'm not getting Whiteboard Kun out of the way, though. He's going to stay up here because I have a feeling I'm going to be flipping this guy back over as soon as the episode's over. So I figure it's fine. I will just position myself where y'all can't see that halo of light and it won't be too annoying. But yeah, we're good. I only talked for 25 minutes. See? On board. Totally sane. Everything's fine. But yeah, so thank you for all the comments. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more with episode 21 and 20 on YouTube, but, or episodes 21 and 22, but it's fine. It's okay. So yeah, I'm going to look at the comments remaining for episode 20 on YouTube and 21 on Patreon for next week's episode. So the ones I've missed for this one, we'll answer there, but I'm ready to start this episode, guys. I hope you all are too, but we've wasted enough time. Let's dive in. I'm sure 28 minutes, no big deal. So we're going to start Neon Genesis Evangelion episode 22, Director's Cut. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's jam. I was trying to think of what shirt to wear for this reaction, and I've worn this for Attack on Titan, but this Righteous Anger shirt, it seems like it fits Asuka pretty well in this episode. Man, so I'm actually really glad we got an Asuka-centered episode. I'm really happy about that. Our girl has got some damage. Some internal damage. Yeah. So let's go back real quick. I'm not going to flip Whiteboard Kun over yet. But let's go back to that second stage, shall we? Because the more this episode kept going, I was like, oh, maybe this hypothesis isn't so far-fetched. So we have for episode 22, make sure y'all can see that. You can barely see that. I'm going to lower it down just a hair. So episode 22, if we are talking about the anal stage, again, we tie that idea to control of bodily needs, and it's tied to both independence and accomplishment. Now, at the very end of the 5 stages of psychosexual development, if you have accomplished and successfully completed these stages, then you will be a well-balanced, well-meaning individual. Asuka's not passing this stage very well. And I think this entire episode is just showing how she's not passing it. And to the extent that she's not passing it. And that strive for independence and accomplishment. And it's not just her either. It's other characters too. But this is mainly Asuka focused. And Asuka focusing in on the anal stage. Asuka, girl, has got some issues. And the sad thing is that I think she's so far gone at this point that she all she's wanting to do, we go back to the idea. Now, the idea about focusing on the destrudo, the idea of focusing on the negative things and repeating them over and over again, that seems to be, let's talk about the EVA units in destrudo, because that seems interesting. So we have the EVA units. We're going to do the EVAs and the unreliable intel. Masato gave herself away that she got information about them from somebody because nobody told her about this third impact hitting Adam. I'm like, they all know now. She said it in a moment of like desperation and now they know that she knows. I don't like where this is headed. No, because Kaji's apparently dead and nobody knows but Masato and the people that killed them. Who shot Kaji? We don't know. I wondered, I was like, are we going to get any hint as to Kaji in this episode? Of course we're not. Of course we're not. We're not going to find out till like episode 24, 25, or 26, I'm sure. They're not going to give that away to us because they're cruel and heartless. So, but yes, we have Evas and the unreliable intel that we shall get to, right? But I want to go back to the beginning of this episode. No OP! None! I joked last episode, I was like, I'm really glad we have the OP. Hope it never gets to that point where there isn't one. Nobody commented. I was like, oh God. They all knew. You all knew that there wasn't going to be an OP for episode 22. And you just didn't want me to know. But yeah, I thought about texting my brother WTF with the hallelujah signs. But I feel like I almost laughed. I was like the hallelujah at the end there. Because I was like, what a bizarre, I mean, it's not a bizarre music choice because it makes sense in the context of the angels, literally. But it's funny because it's in English. And it's funny because I associate that hallelujah jingle, not with Christmas, not with Christianity, not with angels even, but I associate it with something comedic. A lot of Western movies, especially like movies from the 90s and stuff that were like comedies, would use that hallelujah, that song, to focus on a funny moment. And so seeing it in the context of Neon Genesis, I wanted to laugh because I was like, this is not getting the emotional response out of me that it should get. Or maybe it is. Maybe that was Anno's intent. Maybe he's like, let's have some fun, right? In this dark, depressing series. Let's have some fun. So, okay. We've got lots of things to talk about with the Evas, with Asuka, with Shinji, with mainly Asuka. Asuka's like the focal point of this episode. And so this is when they're on the hangar. God, I'm so glad that Kaji we still get to see him post-mortem. I'm sure he's dead. But I want to make note of Kaji. We're going to bring Kaji up. We're going to bring our side characters up over here. We're going to do Kaji. I'm actually very pleased with how they handled Kaji in this scene. Want to make note, there's a lot of the numbers 8, 10, 8 and 10 in this series. I'm going to just bring that little counter down here that the AM radio, we're going to note here, is AM radio 810. I noticed that a lot in this, so we're going to tie back to it. It kept going back to 8 and 10, or the numbers 108. We talked about the numbers 108 in a previous episode, tied to the 108 times the bell rings on New Year's, and it's tied to Buddhism, things like that. Well, this number 8 and 1, they're a lot. A lot. We'll get to it. But, so, which is funny because they mentioned that up to 17 units were being made, so if you included 00, that would be 18. Oh, so is there 18 total Evas? We'll bring that up. That's terrifying. We'll bring that up. So I like that in the shot of the radio there's like peach, it looks like cherry fizz, like cherry soda, and then he has a beer. Which is funny because I'm assuming the cherry is for Asuka, the beer is for Kaji. And our poor boy Kaji, he just looks miserable. And I wonder at this point if Kaji knows that he's going on a suicide mission to learn about Nerve and to give that intel to Masato or whoever, or the Japanese government. I wonder if at this point Kaji knew that what he was doing was a suicide mission and he's like, I'm returning to Japan to my death. I wonder if he knew that going in, or if he's just like tired of Asuka. Because, okay, Asuka right from the onset, she says Masato's the person who's in Germany before you, Mr. Kaji. So Asuka knew Masato before Kaji. Which Masato said in the last episode, we found out that she'd taken a stint in Germany and had been there, right? So we got that idea there. Okay. She was the person in Germany before you. And he's like, yep, like he knows. I don't really like her much. The way she lives is so affected. And, it's really sad because, like, Kaji, I don't think Asuka realizes the extent that Kaji loves Masato at this point. So her trash talking her and everything, he doesn't do anything. And he's also like, you're a kid. You have no idea. Like, you have no idea our history or anything about it. And Asuka's she's just performing as an adult when she's not. She's like, this is going to be goodbye for a while. It's so boring. And he smiles at that and he says, once you get to Japan, I'm sure you'll make lots of new boyfriends. And he tries to, like, put a spin on it. And she's like, I hear the third child is a boy. So Kaji's trying to, it's weird. He's basically trying to gently say to Asuka, to tell Asuka, you know, she will make friends and meet boys her own age. yeah, meet boys her own age. And he talks up Shinji, which ends up not being what she expected, right? So he's trying to say in the gentlest way possible, be like, oh, don't worry, you'll meet guys your own age. When you go to Japan, he's like, you'll have lots of boyfriends. It'll be fine. He's like, you're a kid, but it's okay, right? You'll be perfectly fine. And so she goes, and just her action, like scrunching up and like going, like waving her feet. It's a very childish thing to do. And she's like, I'm not interested in stupid brats. And then when she like leaned over and like got on top of him, she's like, you're the only one I love, Kaji. And Kaji's like, damn it. I feel for Kaji in this because he's like, you're a kid. Like, leave me alone. So I'm proud of Kaji that he's like, no, he's like, you don't love me. You love the idea of me. That's like when he was with Masato back in episode 20, and she's like, who are we trying to fool? Are we trying to fool the Japanese government? He's like, I'm just fooling myself. He's like, any other woman I'm with is not you, Masato. So he's like, I'm fooling myself thinking I can do these other things. But he's just like, that's quite an honor. Like, he's trying to be nice. And she's like, if it's with you, it's all totally okay. And Asuka is basically offering, like, to have sex with Kaji. Like, saying, like, oh, we could be together. Like, we could be in a mature sexual relationship. She's like, if it's with you, it's okay. She's like, kissing and even other stuff after that. And it's like, the fact that she says kissing and even the stuff after that, if you have to phrase it that way, it's like, you're still not mature enough to... She can't say kissing and sex. She just says, and stuff after that. Like, she's not even sure what comes after that. And at that point, Kaji's like... He's like, no, Asuka, you're still a child. So he calls her out. So he calls her out for being a child. Which she is. That's the thing. He's not saying it to insult her. He's saying, no, you are a kid. You are, at this point, 13 to 14 years old. You're not an adult. You're barely a teenager. Like, you have no clue what is involved with all that. So, but we've established that she's developed her period, so she's just getting into that, like, sexual awakening phase. And, of course, she's attracted to Kaji because he's freaking good looking and he's handsome and charming. So why wouldn't she be attracted to him? So it makes sense. But he's like, no, honey. He's like, you don't understand. We are totally different leagues. Those things can wait until you grow up a little. And he tries to be gentle with it. He tries to be like, look, you need to mature a little bit more. Like don't worry about all that kissy and stuff after that for right now. Don't worry about that. You've got plenty of time to think about it. And she's like, but that's no fun. And she says, I'm already grown up enough. She's like, and she like rips open her dress and like exposes herself to him. I'm like, Kaji's like, what did I do to deserve this? So Asuka, she wants to be grown up. And Asuka suffers from that syndrome that a lot of young girls face where they mature really early and they look really mature for their age. Like my cousin's 15. She looks like she's 19. Like she's grown up. She looks very mature for her age. And some girls just go through that really quickly, like right when they're around 12 or 13 years old, and they grow up real quickly. And so they go through puberty, hits hard and fast. And so it seems like it's done that for Asuka, and she wants the maturity that goes along with that. But that's not possible. She just has to grow up and experience that herself. So it cuts to all these images of her. She's like, I'm a grown up. And every image of her next to Shinji or whoever else, she's like either in contrast where she's all in blue or all in red, but she doesn't look human, which is funny because the name of this episode is At Least Be Human or Don't Be. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, so let's just say the title of this episode is either, and I'll put it over here, the title of this episode is either Be Human or Don't Be. And honestly, this series makes you question what humanity even is and the extent of it versus the angels and the Evas and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I'm a grown-up. And it shows her like in all the situations. And there's one where she's exposed and she's naked inside the Eva unit. Like if you pause it, it's right there. She's naked inside the Eva unit. I'm assuming during when they had to go naked into the testing area. But yeah, all these images of her exposed and then around Shinji and Rei. Oh, Asuka, honey. Oh, my girl. She's like, look at me. And there's the doll with its head ripped off and the blood around it. And it looks like I know it's a spotlight, but it looks like the moon behind it. It's a spotlight, but it looks like the moon. So the phrase, she like, look at me. That's going to come up again in this episode. Look at me. Mm-hmm. And then we have the doll that is tied to both Asuka herself and her mother. Her bio mother. Which we'll talk about that. Asuka has a very curious past. A very curious past, and the doll has its head ripped off. Oof. As it just spirals away from her. And that's the opening. That's it. It's just that is the opening. So I wonder in the director's cut if that was the scene that was cut out from the episode. It was like a minute and a half. If that was part of it. I hope not, because that's a really good scene. I'm like, I was thinking about this during the end credits. I'm like, what could they have cut out from this episode for the TV part? Because it all seems pretty relevant, except for the part where she repeats herself 4 times. That this series has done that, so I was not surprised it did. And the elevator scene that goes on forever. I'll talk about the elevator scene. I really hope they kept the elevator scene in the theatrical cut. I hope not theatrical. I hope they kept the elevator scene that's like 2 minutes long in the TV version and cut out something really important. I would laugh so hard. I really hope in the comments you can tell me that. Like, I am curious. In the comments, you can say, what did they cut out of the director's cut of each episode that we're watching? Like, so for this episode, for episode 22, if you want to tell me what they cut out of the episode, that would be fine. Because I don't think that's a spoiler. We've already seen the episode. But, God, that's hilarious. I really hope they kept the elevator scene in the TV version. Somebody just got up, went to the bathroom, went and made popcorn, put in a pizza. And we cut from that to a church. So we cut right from her lamenting that she's not grown up and her mom dying. We cut to that of a church and the cemetery for her mom. Okay. At the funeral. The sad thing is all these baby versions of them are so freaking cute. I'm like, why? Why can't they be just innocent? They all have messed up childhoods. The fudge. Rei killed somebody. Shinji just like lost his mom. She lost her mom. That's another thing. She can connect to Shinji because she has lost her mom as well. Now the question is, was her dad the guy behind the glass that was having the affair with the other woman, with the scientist? Is that Ritsuko's mom? We don't know. We don't hear. I'd have to go back and listen and see for sure. But I'm like, if Ritsuko's mom just got around in the science community, and I say in the science community because this little conversation that happens during the funeral as like the guy I'm assuming is her dad is holding her hand is rather interesting. So the hypothetical became reality. I'm going to put this over here. I feel like I should tie it in purple, but I'm going to have this convo at the funeral. We're going to just put right here. So hypothetical became reality. So some hypothesis came true, whatever that was there. Talk about unlucky, the proponent becoming the test subject herself. So proponent, test subject herself. All right, bear with me because my brain has become like mush watching this show. So I'm like, okay, so whoever's advocating the theory or the project for the proponent. So are we to assume then that Asuka's mother became the test subject and she was the one that posed? So here's a question here. Did Asuka's mom be a test subject for her own theory? Interesting. Okay, so we have that question to talk about there. All right. And then from there on, they say that then that contact experiment was the direct cause. Oh, okay. So it says contact experiment was the cause. So, okay. Here's the thing, too. She looks about the same age as baby Shinji when his mom died, when Yui died. She looks about the same age. So, was Yui and Asuka's mom involved in similar experiments with the EVA units? And whatever the contact was, it caused her like go crazy and become suicidal and lose her mind? We don't know what happened to Yui. We have no idea. But all that Akagi's mom would say was that she was erased from existence or something like that. But with her mom just went crazy and became suicidal. So maybe maybe the contact with the Eva is like, maybe she had some mental contamination and it drove her mad. Like it's kind of doing with Asuka. So that's interesting. Okay. So there's that to think about. And then from there they say mental breakdown. That was the result of the contact. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, mental breakdown. Which is kind of what's happening with Asuka. So was her mom involved with the angels or Evas and it just went awry? But how cruel is it to commit suicide, leaving such a young daughter behind? So yeah, the mom committed suicide. There might actually be more to that than that. Okay. And then they say, oh, and she's like, and it shows her in bed with the doll. Here's the thing that's weird. She kind of looks like Yui from there. She kind of looks like Yui, the fudge. She kind of looks like Yui because she has the short cropped hair. Maybe not. That big girl over there is going to laugh at you. But I don't think it's Yui because Yui was pretty stable, right? So, oh, the fudge. So many questions that I know that we're going to get answers to, but she goes on like that every day. So she's in, but she looks kind of, she has the same haircut, kind of like Ray even. What? Okay, so the question we have to ask is, the mom is obviously not Yui because she has her own name. I get that. Who is the mom? But why does she look kind of like Yui from the side profile or kind of like Ray? Why is that? What's like, she talks to the doll thinking it's her daughter. So the mom, okay, I'm going to put this down here. The mom thinks the doll is Asuka when it is not, right? Her daughter's just watching her from this like clinical room. She feels responsible in her own way. Her research filled her days and she had no time to pay for her daughter. So she's a scientist. They're all scientists. So she was too busy and she has guilt over neglect for her daughter. Which the thing about Yui, that's interesting. That ties to Yui back in the last episode when she was talking to Fuyu-chan. Because her whole thing was that she was a bioengineering student. But one of the options she said, he was like, oh, are you going to go to work or do more research? She's like, well, there's a third option. She's like, I could just, if I found the right person, I could live a domestic life. Like she was going to abandon all of that research to take care of a child. And that's what she ends up doing. She ends up taking care of Shinji and kind of like, it shows her at the facility still doing lab work, but it seems like Shinji was still very present around her. So Yui seems to have found a way to balance that research with taking care of her child, whereas Asuka's mom seems to have not been able to do that. Kind of like you could argue Dr. Akagi. You could argue about Gendo too. Gendo couldn't balance the Nerve Corporation and being a parent, whereas Yui seemed to be capable of it, and Asuka's mom seems not to. So yeah, her research days filled her. She had no time to pay attention to her daughter. You have my sympathies. By the way she is, they're practically a family of dolls. Yeah, so, and there is Asuka with the head of the doll that she has in her arms. Not the same doll the mom has in her arms, but the head of the doll. The family of dolls. And this whole dialogue here is so interesting. We're talking about perhaps human and dolls are not so different. Saying that humans made dolls in their own image. So connecting it to humanity and how God views them. So there's this talk here of humans being like dolls and that we make dolls in the image of ourselves and man is supposedly made in the image of God. So there's that connection there, that parallel. And then saying perhaps that if God exists, we may be nothing more than dolls to him. That he's just playing with us. I'm surprised to hear such words from a practitioner of modern medicine. Oh, I'm just another human before I'm a doctor of flesh and blood woman. Interesting. So I'm like, are you guys having sex right on the other side of the room with this child watching her suicidal mom have a mental breakdown? Is that what we're doing? So I like that the doctor in this, the doctor says that I'm a human before a doctor, and saying a flesh and blood woman. Interesting. So whoever this doctor is, and yeah, they're just having sex on the other side of this wall where Asuka can just hear it. So no wonder she's all messed up. She just has this idea that, you know, this is what women are supposed to do at that age. Like, they're supposed to be like that. Like, she just has this messed up, warped idea because people can't stop getting it on around her. Like, go get a room. Read the room. It's really sad. And yeah, it lingers for a while. And it goes back. So, Soryo Kyoko Zeppelin, 2005. So, it's the year afterwards. Oh, okay. So, interesting. So, Soryu Kyoko Zeppelin. Zeppelin is an interesting middle name. Like, curious. So, her mom's name is Soryu Kyoko Zeppelin. And so, 74 to 84, 84 to 94, 94 to 2004. So, she was 31. So, she was 31 at 2005. So curious, that was the year after Yui died. All right, so the year after Yui died, she passed. So it could be possible that they kept on the Eva experiments. They kept doing the Eva experiments after Yui died. Gendo went full swing. They got Germany involved. They hightailed this German family to Japan to test over there, which would have been, she was probably a researcher. She brought Asuka with her. She was buried in research, neglected her daughter. And then she experimented like Yui did on this Eva unit and ended up going insane and killing herself and leaving Asuka alone. And they're like, you're such a good girl, Asuka. It's okay. You don't have to hold it in. And she's like, it's okay. I'm not going to cry. I'm going to think for myself. So again, there are a lot of instances in this episode where Asuka wants to be independent. She does not want to. She wants to be an adult. So the whole thing with Kaji, I'm not a kid. I'm an adult. This whole thing, like, I'm not going to cry because my mother died. I'm going to act on my own and think for myself. I'm independent. Again, tying back to that anal stage. That's interesting. And then she comes back and she does, I mean, so the whole thing with her mother and when she had that moment of weakness around Shinji makes a lot more sense now, especially knowing the context of what's going on. Can you hear me, Asuka? So yeah, of course your sync rate is affected by everything. At least be human. Okay. 185th harmonics test. So yeah, her sync rate's been on a downward trend and it's problematic considering our tight situation. Let's make Ray's OO unit our priority. We don't have leeway to repair both at the same time. And so Maya, I like how Maya and Ritsuko are having this pragmatic conversation where they're like, yeah, Asuka's there, she's got some stuff going on. And Ritsuko's like, well, we're in a tight crunch because we can't rely on the O1 unit right now. We can't rely at all on Toji's unit. So we really have these two. We need to focus on Ray's unit. And we talked about the Hayflick thing and them reaching the limit of repairing their cells. So it says mitosis in the unit 2's left arm has cleared the target value. Necrosis is currently under 0.05%. So that's like the deterioration of the flesh is not as bad and they're fixing it. And then they go back to the OO unit, which looks, their morphogenic system is currently stable. So it's in a much better shape. Connect the receptors to signal 2. And then we see Shinji's unit and Masato standing in front of it. The Eva series born from Adam. We even have to make use of what causes. I like Masato in this. Masato worries me a great deal because I'm like, oh girl. So let's go back to Masato. So Masato is talking about the Eva units here. And so in order for us to win against the angels, I like this conversation. Masato's like, in order to live, we will even use a thing that tried to wipe us out. So she's saying we are using the enemy to get as strong as the enemy and then defeat it. She's like, the sad thing is we have to use the very thing that tried to kill us in order to fight it. Like, we can't come up with any other way. We have to be just as cruel and heartless as the enemy in order to defeat them. And she says, I guess that's what humans do. So yeah, so that's what humans do. We learn from the enemy and we fight even crueler in order to win. Like that's such a line. And so it also ties to the whole be human or don't. Like, are you going to fight back dirty and even dirtier to win or not? Shinji at the end of this episode doesn't want to fight dirty. He's like, let's get Asuka out of there. And Gendo, the moment Gendo was like, I don't care, I was like, man is honest. He's like, he does not give a shit about Asuka's life. Shinji's like, she could die. And he's like, don't care. I'm like, which we'll talk about this. I feel like other than Masato, none of them really care about Asuka. And that's contributing to the whole problem, right? God, she's like, in the end, maybe I do hate the Eva. The question is, does she hate them for her own reasons or because of her dad? But I love that shot of her in front of Eva, just like Shinji's. My father's murderer. Yeah, my father's murderer. Like, she ties it back to that theme of revenge, right? And then, of course, she's called in. I love that nerve. You see the nerve sign, and it's all, like, deteriorating. I feel like this nerve sign is a representation of where we're at in the series. We still have nerve, and God's in his heaven, all's right with the world, but it's starting to crumble and rip apart and deteriorate from the outside in. I feel like that's where this series is headed. And it kind of ties visually to the angel trying to get and seep into the humans. So there's that aspect of it. It's a visually cool symbol. Construction of Evas has run up through Unit 13. Okay, so I'm wrong. I'm wrong there. Not 18 yet, but 13. 13. Of course you use the number 13, Otto. So Eva's up through Unit 13. So 14 total. Which is funny because you have to be 14 to pilot it. So they're on the making 14 total Eva units. They said in 7 locations around the world. Okay. And we know that the number 7 has a Christian context to it. So in 7 locations. I love that, again, this entire conversation is taking place as they're rebuilding the pyramid for Nerve. As they're rebuilding it, this entire conversation is happening between the one guy and her. The information came via Shanghai. The source can be trusted. So the guy with glasses is helping Masato gather intel. Girl, who are you dragging into this? How deep is this going? I'm like, Kaji probably died the last episode because it got in too deep. I'm like, Masato, back out. Why are they rushing mass production at this stage? And the guy's like, well, we lost 2 Evas in the past, and the 2 we have are currently damaged, so why not? Maybe they're rushing it to reinforce our reserves with an eye towards secondary preparation. She's like, I don't know. Even here, we're getting Germany to give us parts from 05 and 06 that are being built there. Okay, so the 05 unit, we established 03. 04 is the one that was taken. So 04 disappeared. So we know that 00, 01, and 02 are Japan. And we know that 03 and 04 were America. And 05, 06 are Germany. Okay, and I mean, that's half right there. So, and this information came from Shanghai. So I imagine in China they're building some too, maybe. Why would Shanghai have information otherwise? We don't know, but interesting. Okay, it seems there's a lot of money changing hands lately, which, as we saw in the last episode, yeah, the world's ending, people's lives are in danger, the mental state of your soldiers is deteriorating to practically nothing, but how much time and money are we putting into this? How much are we doing that? That old song and dance. Our budget, and he says, well, our budget was doubled since we came here. Do you suppose that just shows how desperate the higher-ups are? And Masato's like, I sense a certain impatience on the part of the committee. Then they are anticipating a case. Are they anticipating a case where not single, but multiple angels are deployed against us at once? What? I mean, at this point, they're trying to fish out, why are we going into mass production so quickly of all these Evas? What's going on? Now, according to the last episode, we know that the third impact is quote unquote scheduled. The Dead Sea Scrolls have scheduled when the third impact is going to happen. So by Seal's script, maybe they're getting mass production because they're sensing that they're running out of time. And in the last episode, we also kind of established that things aren't completely going on script. There's some off-script things happening. Kaji noted that. So he's like, well, this is going to freak him out even more if they find out that things aren't going according to plan. And maybe that's why they're rushing too. But Masato and them aren't sure about it. But that whole multiple angels at once, that's weird because the angels have always acted singular. Like, the idea of multiples acting together is kind of terrifying. Right? So he says there's no reason to do it unofficially. Yeah, so Masato's like, well, that makes sense. Yeah, if they're freaked out, if they think that there could be multiple angel attacks, but why do it all hush-hush? Why do it under the radar? Why not announce to at least Nerve that that's what we're doing? But nobody's talking about it. So Masato's like, that's what's suspicious. Nobody's saying a word. It's all being hushed. And she's like, I don't like it. I'm like, oh my God. So from there, I love her expression. There must be some other objective in mind. And the thing of it is, Masato, ever since Kaji has died, Masato is super, I'm just going to make it purple because why not? Super skeptical of Nerve and the Eva project. Again, does not bode well for Masato because if it seems like if you haven't drank the Kool-Aid and are on board with the Eva project, then there's a problem. So I like that we get some Winston cigarette promotional things in this show. There's like some Winston cigarette ads, like product placement right here. It's pretty good product placement. You wouldn't know it. But the train and Asuka being on, how fitting a representation and some symbolism there that Asuka is separated on the tracks from Shinji and Rei. Again, we've talked about that train being like a metaphor. And also, to be noting that she still thinks Kaji is alive. And for all we know, so does Shinji. So Masato, like I said, Masato and the one that killed him are the ones that know he's dead. And probably Nerve, probably Gendo and them, they know he's dead. But she thinks he's still alive. Which is so sad. She's like, I still can't get through. And it's almost, again, we do that parallel of her and Shinji. She's almost kind of like Shinji too. Like when Shinji was in denial about Toji being the fourth child, Shinji would look up every opportunity to think, well, that can't be. And here it's like, girl, read the room. Like, I think she starts to get the writing on the wall with her conversation with Masato at the house. But when she's like, I still can't get through, it's like, don't you think that's a little suspicious? It's a little sketchy. I wonder if he went away somewhere again. He did. He sure did. And so her flipping her hair, that is the one thing that was repeated 4 times. Okay, so I'm going to put over here the 4 times repetition. We have the hair flip. The hair flip at Kaji's disappearance, which I'll just put MIA. We have that. So that's the first thing. Okay. Interesting. A train will presently be arriving at Terminal 2. And then she looks over and sees Shinji and Rei. And it looks like Shinji's looking at her, like side-eye looking at her. It seems to be the case, but maybe that's the animation thing. And she's like, he melted into his Eva for a whole month just the other day. And what's with him? He's totally back to his usual thing again. So yeah, she's kind of like, she's thinking, why doesn't Shinji seem affected? And she lamented against Masato because Masato seemed effective. So Asuka's just a plethora of issues. But her thing is, she's like, you were primordial goop for a month, Shinji, and you're just acting like this is totally normal. She's like, what's wrong with you? Because Asuka's probably thinking that she could not do that. She couldn't, 1, turn into primordial soup and be fine with it. But 2, she's like, how can you be normal when none of this is normal? Like she herself is having a mental breakdown in this episode. She's like, fine, so I've lost. And yeah, she says in that moment, she's like, I've lost. I couldn't be as strong as you. So could we say that Asuka has a bit of penis envy for Shinji? Yeah, I think that's pretty I think that could be it. Which that would tie to the next stage, which is phallic, more than the anal, which it could. That's the next stage after this. So yeah, she does have a little bit of penis envy for Shinji. She's like, how can he? And maybe it's not even penis envy. Maybe she's jealous of Shinji because he seems so strong. We, the audience, know that Shinji's pretty messed up, but Asuka does not, because they don't communicate that with one another. So she has no clue. And Shinji's sitting there talking to Rei, and so she's probably also jealous. She's probably also jealous of Shinji's closeness to Rei. The sad thing is, I think if Asuka would tone the frick down and just stop like trying to berate Shinji every 5 seconds, I think if she toned down, then she could develop that friendship with Shinji. But Asuka is not emotionally stable or socially capable of doing that, because that's just not her. She's she's aggressive, she's hyper, she's super like defensive, and she has a lot of insecurities. And so she can't let that go to develop this stable relationship, and then things just end up, it just doesn't work. And so then she's just screwing herself over. So it's very frustrating to watch her go through this. She's like, you're just a... And so is it, you're just a child? I feel like she wanted to say you're just a child, but then again, paralleling back, Asuka is very similar to Shinji. So she's basically calling herself a child if she says that. So there's a lot of parallels to Shinji in this episode. We had a dog barking, like right before we cut to Masato in them apartments. So I'm like, okay, there are dogs here. There are dogs in Tokyo 3, let it be known. But then we have Pin. And Pin is just looking at, God, I love it, looking at Asuka like, this is awkward. Pin's like, this is super, super awkward. Like, what we doing? As Masato is just drinking her beer, and Shinji, they're all eating in silence. It's that super, if you've ever had like, if you know that there's tension like at the family dinner table and nobody wants to talk because they know it's going to blow up into an argument, that's this scene. That is entirely this scene. It's about to blow up. And Pin's like, peace up, I'm out. Pin's like, I can't take this. I'm going to exit the room. And then Masato's like, it's the three of us all here for once, and we're just so awkward. And Asuka's like, well, I'm done. And then, so there's the phone ringing, and she's like, it's just going to be another call from Kaji for you. You answer it. And Masato, she says that's not likely. Like Masato didn't give anything away, but that moment, Asuka's face is like, why would you say that? Like, Asuka's like, why would you say it's not likely? Like, what's up? What's happened between you and Kaji? Like, just that look she gives, or she's like, excuse me? And so then she won't answer it. And Shinji's like, well, screw this, I'm going to go answer it. And she tries to, like, again, Asuka does not want to give up. She wants to claim that independence, that lack of authority. She doesn't want Masato to boss her around. So she's like, I do what I want. Like, she's Cartman. Basically, Asuka is Cartman in this from South Park. And it's like, I do what I want, respect my authority, and does not want to do what anyone else tells her to do. So she wants to claim that independence for herself, her own agency. And so that begs the question, and Whiteboard Kun is going to go over at some point. But, so we have Asuka, who is trying to constantly claim authority and control over her life. She is trying to be in control of something. It seems like she wasn't in control of her mother's death. She wasn't in control of where she was at in that research facility. She wasn't in control with going overseas. She can't be in control of her relationships. Like, things just, she has no semblance of control or agency. So maybe not even authority, but agency. And so she, because she is jealous of Shinji, she berates him. She berates him for doing tasks that aren't his. She's like, oh, you're answering the phone for me. So you're lowering yourself to a menial chore. And Shinji's like, I'm not lowering myself. I'm just answering the phone. Like, it's not that big of a deal. He's like, hello, it's for you. And of course, she's like, what's with this prissy attitude? I'm like, projecting there. Because I'm like, Asuka, you're the one with the prissy attitude. Shinji's just ignoring you. But that's another thing, is that she feels ignored. She feels ignored and unloved. But she doesn't have a way of communicating that because she doesn't want to seem vulnerable. So Asuka doesn't want to seem vulnerable, so she can't just come out and say, why don't you all love me and acknowledge me? Because I think if she came out and said it, Shinji'd be like, well, we do care for you. And Masato would be like, yeah, we care for you, dummy. But because Asuka's so proud and she's so, does not want to give anything away that she could be anything but strong and doesn't want to seem vulnerable or weak, she won't say it. And so nobody knows. So it's like, get this girl a damn therapist. She needs it. And he says that it's for her. It's an international call from Germany. And he's so chill. He's like, it's your mother. And she's like, oh. And I was so confused at first because she talks and seems so kind. And again, her back is turned to us and she's speaking in German. And those of you in the audience watching that are German, y'all can comment down below what she's saying because we don't get subtitles for the German, right? But Shinji notes that on the phone with her back to us, she is a stranger. She instantly changes her tune. She instantly becomes animated and loud and friendly, but we don't see her face. It's all a facade, right? She's just putting on a show for the fake mom, right? Or not the fake mom, but the adopted mom. Mm-hmm. And Shinji's like, oh, really? And we get to hear this whole conversation. So again, if y'all know German, speak up down below. What's she saying? And he's like, a mother. And so Shinji, and you can tell Shinji's kind of jealous too of her. Again, parallel, Shinji's kind of jealous of her because he's like, oh, she can talk to a mom. He's like, my mom's dead and my dad wants nothing to do with me. So he's like, at least you have somebody you can talk to that's a parent or a parental figure. And so I like the ecstasy. I like the XT extra shirt that Shinji has on. It's fun. And then she gets off the phone. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't look happy. That was not a phone call she wanted to have. She was just putting on the facade. He's like, you talked for a long time. She's like, it's our usual bit of communication. So she opens up to Shinji quite a bit here, saying that they have, so she does, I'm going to have to fit it in here. She does talk to her mom, quote unquote, a bit. She does talk to her sometimes. So she said it was our usual bit, meaning that they've done this more than once. They have talked more than once. And he's like, oh, it must be nice to have a family to talk to. And so, again, we have these two sides of it where Shinji's like, wow, it's great to have family that will talk to you. The fact that Shinji has to say that, the fact that Shinji has to acknowledge that Gendo sucks as a parent it's so damn sad. But she says it's just an appearance. It's only on the surface. So she only has family on the surface. There's nothing deep about it at all to her. And so she's like, she's not my real mother anyway. He's like, oh. She's like, but it's not like I hate her. I just don't deal with her well. And then she's like, why am I telling you all this? So I was like, damn it. Just when I was like, Asuka was starting to develop something with Shinji, she realizes what she's doing and she's like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I being vulnerable and exposing myself? And I'm like, it's like, Asuka, you don't have to. It's funny because Asuka, we've said this entire series, is performing a lot of male masculine, toxic masculinity tropes of like real men don't cry and real men don't show their emotions and have complicated emotional dialogues that would maybe reveal they're vulnerable and human. No, Asuka is embodying all of those. Shinji's trying to ask questions and be friendly, but Asuka she is embodying that, we don't cry, we do things our own, we're independent, I'm a strong, independent woman, I don't need no man, but she wants it. She's embodying a lot of those tropes. And so I'm so sad that she backtracks here And he's like, well, sorry. He's like, I was trying to have a conversation. And she's like, it's all over if even you start sympathizing with me. So she does not want pity. And that ties back to the graveyard scene where everybody was like, oh, what a poor girl and all this. And she's like, I don't want your pity. I want to be seen. I want someone to connect with me. I don't want people to sympathize and pity me and feel sorry for me. She's like, I want them to connect with me. And Masato's over here like drinking her beer like, girl, what? Like Masato's just like, dear God. She's like, I'm tired of babysitting these kids. And so then she's draining the tub. Mm-hmm. And so she laments here as it's draining. She's like, it makes me sick. Like, hell, I'll bathe in water that Masato and stupid Shinji used. And again, we cut to the top of the water surface that is that same little light, reflection that we've seen in the opening. And we saw in Shinji's back in his visions and everything. So there's all that. But Asuka does not want to share or have to rely on Shinji and Masato. So this whole conversation here is her saying, she's like, I don't want to have to rely on them. I don't want to have to use the bathtub they use. I don't have to use the same water that they use. I don't use the washer that Masato and stupid Shinji used to wash their underwear. She's like, I don't want to do that. And then she's like, I don't want to sit on the same toilet they use. She's like, I don't. Again, we talk about the anal phase is to control of bodily needs. Whether that be using the bathroom and bathing yourself and personal hygiene. She's like, I don't want to have to rely on people. I want to do it all myself and be independent. And so, you see that route of it. But then it takes a really dark turn at the very end. Where she's like hell, I'll breathe the same air as Masato and stupid Shinji. So that was the first sign that maybe Asuka has some mental instability. And is she suicidal? I don't know. I'm not going to say that she's suicidal, but there's the fact that she would be willing to go that far and say it is problematic. But then, yeah, she's like, I hate Masato and I hate Shinji. And it's like, do you really hate them, though? And I hate the first child even more. Now, I don't think she likes Rei. No, she's never liked Rei. Rei's always been a threat to her, right? Rei's always been a threat. But it's so sad to hear her say that she hates Masato and Shinji. Because I'm like, those people are, Masato gave you, and that's part of it. She wants to be independent, but Masato gave her shelter. She gave her a home. She wants to be accomplished, but Shinji and Rei are taking all the accomplishments from her. So, of course, she feels like nothing's going her way. And then she's like, I hate dad and I hate mom. And then she curls into herself like having a cramp, but I hate myself the most. So she says that I'm going to just get rid of this for now. We'll come back to it. That she hates herself the most. That's sad. And there doesn't have to be a reason. I mean, there could be. You could argue a lot of reasons in this of why she hates herself, because she's self-aware that she doesn't want to be seen as vulnerable, so she's self-aware of the facade she puts up. She's self-aware of the theatrics, but at the end of it, she hates herself the most. She hates that she's this way, and she knows that she's not helping herself. She's self-aware. She knows she's not helping herself. For the record, not where I thought this character was going in this series. When we first met Asuka, I was like, oh, she's our fiery redhead. She's going to shake things up and be chaotic, and she's going to be a ray of positivity. No, she's one of the most damaged ones in the whole show. As this episode shows, it's like, damn, Ano, you really took what we thought was going to happen and said, nope. And she's like, I hate this. I can't stand anymore. Her clothes are just all in disarray. Why do I have to? Why me? She's like, why do I have to do this? Why am I a pilot? Why do I have to pilot this even to get a sense of self-worth? And we cut to Masato's room. Masato seems like she understands what's going on. She's like, oh God, you are on your period. You are not a happy camper. Nope, nope, nope. Also to note, Masato's on her laptop presumably doing research, and she has like all the files and stuff. There's also like a plethora of beer cans. Like, girl, yikes. But God, Masato has some great facial expressions in this, where she's just like, Masato looks she looks Kaji-like almost. Like her expressions are very somber and solemn. And I'm like, damn, I'm worried about Masato, honestly. So we have Soryu, Asuka, Langley, and she's getting ready, and she's fiery direct. Fiery direct. Screen is halftone. Yeah, I love it. And she's at negative 12.8 on the sync index. Just barely above activation level. That's terrible. She's dropped me more than yesterday. And so Masato stands up for her and says she's not feeling well today. She's on her second day. So it's like the second day of her period. Okay, she's like, no, she's not feeling great. And the sync rate isn't affected by superficial physical conditions. And so Ritsuko is like, bullshit. Ritsuko, we're going to put her over here. Okay, we're going to put Ritsuko over here. Ritsuko says that your physical conditions do not affect the psyche aspects of it, which is the sync rate is what she says, right? So you being on your period does not mess up the sync rate. That's not it. Ritsuko kind of calls her out on it, being like, that's not enough. I'm like, but that's very clinical. And Ritsuko's taking like the scientific approach, being like, oh no, your psyche and the sync rate, this scientific function is not affected by human biology. And I'm like, is it though? Because the whole aspect of them having to be mentally in tune with the Evas, I'm like, if you're on, if it's that time of the month and you're not feeling good, you and your hormones and everything are raging, that's like, maybe, I don't know, you might be affecting it. It's like the problem lies more in the unconscious. So Ritsuko wants to say that problems are in the unconscious. Meaning that it's nothing that we will even know about. It's all beyond us, right? Which is kind of funny because we talked in the last couple episodes about science and faith tying together. She's saying, oh, it's something in the human body that you can't even comprehend. But she thinks to herself, Ritsuko being like, we may have no choice but to change the core of Unit 2. And she's like, Asuka, you can come up. And then so they had this thing, repair work on the Power Grid 8. So again, talking about Power Grid 8. Power Grid 8. And it is scheduled to start at 1800 hours. Again, that number 1 and 8 has been coming up frequently. We have the smoking sign. And so then we see the nerve and everything and the cigarettes. I love the cigarettes with the lipstick. It'll always be my favorite. So Asuka's pride is in pieces. And so we have, again, every time Masato and Ritsuko are on screen, there are two conversations going at once. And I'm like, show, make up your mind. I think it was it Matthew B was commenting, I think, about how in the English dub this would be really hard to listen to. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to focus. It was hard enough for me to focus with the Hallelujah song playing. I cannot imagine if this is in the dub. But the regular meeting concerning the disposal issue. And so Ritsuko said it's not surprising, consider how she lost. So Masato seems onto Asuka's issues as a pilot and tying it to her loss, because Masato's pretty much figured out Asuka, she has that sense of self-worth tied to the Evas. Oh, so the disposal of cancer will be held on schedule. Or rather, the fact she thinks that she lost to Shinji. So Masato's like, yeah, she feels discouraged because Shinji beat her. General Affairs Managers, please come to conference room 2. The number 2 was thrown around in this episode a lot more than usual. The number 2 is mentioned a lot, and usually it's number 3. So I find that curious. It's tied to O2 unit, to Asuka. Maybe the 3 of us has reached its limit. And so I like that Akagi tries to mock her in this moment, where she's like, well, maybe we shouldn't be together, the 3 of us. Maybe we're doing more harm to Asuka than good. And Akagi says, oh, did your threshold get exceeded? Is this the end of your merry game of house? Like Ritsuko just like, she throws shade. She throws shade at the notion of bonding amidst everything going on. So Ritsuko's like, yeah, you thought you just have this little game of house and you just play and have you and the kids and everything was going to be hunky-dory. She's like, no. And I wonder if that is also Ritsuko being a little bit jealous and putting up a barb there. She's jealous that Masato had that. And Masato's like, oh, well, I don't want to hear it from someone who keeps a cat to keep the loneliness at bay. And I was like, oh, shit. And Akagi, her face, that face that she makes when Masato, like, throws that shade back. And Masato's like, well, at least I don't have a cat to keep me company. And she's like, you have a fucking penguin. So, I love that Akagi's like, oh, don't you talk about Mr. Snuffles that way. Like, I want to see Akagi's cat now. Of course Akagi's a cat person. That's why Kaji got all the cat things. She's like, I guess I'm on edge. I also find it interesting that Masato, there's this plant. There was a plant that was outside her room in the prior scene. And in this scene, there's a plant that's like shrouding over Masato kind of. I don't know if there's a point to that, but it's a curious animation thing that's popped up in this. She's like, I'm on edge. And so then we cut to Asuka, who is lamenting about her period. Why do I have to go through this just because I'm a woman? I don't even want kids. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that Asuka does not want kids. Does not surprise me at all. So, but this is a curious thing. So Asuka, and then there is the woman who never bleeds. That was brought up in Ray's poem, right? So is Ray sterile? Does Ray not get her periods? Is she the woman that never bleeds? So, because yeah, it sucks. And people don't talk about periods. I love that this show and Yona of the Dawn, 2 series I'm watching, have brought up periods like in the last few weeks of watching them. Because yeah, nobody ever talks about it. It's like in the US it's taboo. People are like, oh, don't talk about periods, lady business and stuff. I'm like, no, it's literally your uterus shedding its lining every month. Like it sucks. And it's just a constant reminder you're not having a kid. So it sucks, right? And it happens till you're like in your 40s. And so, or your 50s. And so for Asuka, she's like, why do I have to go through with this when I don't even want this? She's like, it's not something I even want, so why do I have to deal with it? And all I could think about was that line, the woman who never bleeds. And thinking like, is it referring to some woman that never has her period or that is sterile or has been sterilized? How does that work? Is it referring to Ray? I don't know. We don't know that for sure yet. And so like Route Loop is currently closed due to an accident. How random. Please use the detour via Route 12, which is, Route 7 and then Route 12 equals 3. Gotcha. So then there's this elevator scene. The longest elevator scene in history. What the fudge? What the fudge? They're going down the 8th floor. Elevator 55, the 8th floor. They're going down 5th floor, 6th floor. And it's just Asuka and Ray in this elevator. I imagine that this scene has been memed the hell to pieces. Because it's so quiet. There's literally nothing happening until the end. But it's just like, I feel like people have memed, like put rave music over this or done something with it. I'm sure you all will tell me all about it in the comments. Oh my God. It's absolutely great. The elevator scene, it's worth taking a picture of because it's so iconic. Oh my God. Yep. So yeah, with the purple line in there. So I mean, it goes on for a solid couple of minutes. And just identifying the tension between Asuka and Ray. They really just don't like each other, right? Which is funny because you have Ray with red eyes and like bluish purple hair. You have Asuka with the red hair and the blue eyes. So they're complete contrasts of each other. It's great. And Ray is poised right there at the elevator, like waiting to leave. Ray is not there to like Asuka's propped up against the elevator, but Ray is like ready to walk out as soon as it opens. She's like, nope, not wasting any time. And so then, yeah, we just have this elevator scene that goes on forever until finally, I'm trying to say, who breaks up the conversation first? Who says the first words of the 2 girls? What is it? Who's going to cave? Ray caves. And she says, the Eva won't move unless you open up your heart. So, Ray spouting some lore off, saying the Eva won't move unless you open your heart. Which is funny, coming from Rey, who seems to be like the least in tune with their emotions of all of them. But maybe she's the most, and we just don't know it. But for her to say that, it makes sense with everything we've seen so far in the series, that would be the case. That you would, if you open up your heart, the evil will move. That seems to have worked for Shinji. It works for Rey. Asuka knows that, but... And then Asuka just gets mad, and she's like, are you saying that my heart is closed? And then Rey's like, yes, the Evas have souls. So, to answer our question from the last, from Christopher Peterson, the Evas, apparently, according to Rey, have souls of their own. Now, the question is, are the souls that Rey is talking about, are those the souls of the Evas that were formed from Adam, from the angels? Or is it the souls of, like, the human will that was embedded into them? Like, I think, my theory is, like, Yui, her soul is inside that Eva unit, right? That's what I think. Her soul's trapped in the O1 unit. So is that what Rey's referring to? There's souls inside those units that you're basically essentially communing with. And she's like, those puppets. And God, that profile of Rey is so pretty. I love it. She's like, you should know that. She's like, fancy you starting up a conversation. Maybe it'll snow tomorrow. I missed that line. That's great. Yeah, she's like hell froze over. And Rey's just ready to leave. She's like, what? Are you so happy that I can't pilot the Eva? There's nothing wrong, nothing to worry about. If another angel attacks us, then I'm sure the great and invincible Shinji will take care of us. So yeah, again, Asuka's jealous because she's like, you all just, she believes she is a failure. And she's like, oh, well, fine. Well, Shinji will just save us. Or you have all the knowledge. You know all about the Evas. Asuka feels like she's in the dark. She feels like she doesn't know anything. She doesn't know how the Evas work. She's being shown up by Shinji and Rey, she feels. And so she feels useless. She feels like she has no independence or sense of accomplishment. So she's failing the anal stage at this right now. And she doesn't like it. We don't have to do anything. And she has said that over and over again in the series. She's talked about how, oh, well, Shinji's here, you're here, we don't have to do anything. Like, she's like, but that's not what she wants. And Rey, like, all they need is Shinji. We're not important. And Rey, she doesn't respond. So she says, first I get Shinji's sympathy, and now even from the mechanical puppet girl. Ooh, and then Rey, she's like, I really lost my edge. And Rey says, I'm not a puppet. She's like, you do whatever you're told. So yeah, so it's interesting that Rey says she is not a puppet. That she has her own autonomy, right? And Asuka's lamenting that, no, we don't have any say, and that's the problem. She's like, you do whatever you're told. And she says, you'd die if Commander Ikari told you to, wouldn't you? And all she says is, that's right. So yeah, but that could be her own choice, right? Because Asuka says that you would die. She says, you would die if Ikari asked you to. And she said, yes, if Ikari told you to die, you would. But the thing about that is that still Rey's choice, right? That's still Rey's choice at the end of the day. Rey, her saying she's not a puppet, that still checks out because, yeah, if Ikari says, okay, go jump off a cliff, Rey has to choose whether she does it or not. And if Rey chooses to do so, it's not her being a puppet, it's her making a decision and following through with it, right? And so she's telling Asuka, she's like, yeah, I may do things, but it's because I decide to. It's not because anybody makes me do it. They don't force me to do it. They give me the choice and I make the decision. And Asuka can't stand that because that's that idea of independence. That is Rey getting to choose her life and be in control of it. And even if it's something that someone else is telling her to do, she still gets to make the decision. And for Asuka, I feel like Asuka tries to make decisions, kind of like Shinji, tries to make decisions, but people constantly keep her from doing what she wants to do. And Rey telling her that, yeah, I'd do what I want to do. Even if somebody told me to kill myself, I'd do it if I felt like it. That's just like a slap to the face for Asuka. Like, Asuka can't stand that. And that's why she hits Rey. And I love that she must have hit Ray and pushed her back and gotten in front of her, because she backs out of the elevator before Ray. And she says, "You are a puppet. I've always really hated you because you're so much like a puppet." But that's not the case at all. And we see Ray with the slap to her face. But no, that's whenever Asuka yells something, she is projecting the opposite of how she really feels. So she tells Ray she's a puppet, but the reality is she hates Ray because she has the independence and control over her life and her decisions that Asuka doesn't feel like she has herself. Oh, she's like, I hate everyone. Because they all have the control that she doesn't. Or that she thinks she doesn't. Ugh. Damn. And so then we cut back to that light, the light above Shinji's bedroom that we've seen in the previous episode, that is Shinji just sitting there, and he doesn't go to class. So they make note that Shinji and Asuka and Rei have not shown up to class. And they're like, even though Ayanami being absent is normal, there's like nobody left in class. There's like 6 people. The class is dwindling. And Ida's like, well, I guess school isn't a priority right now. And so... But it's like everything is falling apart for these 3. Like they are mentally like degrading. Like school is the last thing that they're worried about. Now that we found out that school is a big farmhouse for EVA pilots, it's like, yeah, I don't blame them for not wanting to go back. Especially with what happens to Toji. I feel like it's pretty natural they don't want to go. So then Asuka's in front of the EVA unit. I like that we've seen Masato in front of the O1 unit, and now we see Asuka in front of the O2 unit. Mm-hmm. She's like, you're finally back to normal after losing like that. Like, Asuka calls out the EVA unit and says it's the EVA's unit fault, that it lost instead of her. So, Ray saying that the unit O2 was the loser. Not her. No, Ray didn't lose. Or Asuka didn't lose. It was the O2 unit that lost. She's like, you're my puppet, so you'll have to do all you have to do is quietly do as I say. And I love that it gets closer and closer to the Eva's head. The more she talks to it, just gets like gets close. It's like, oh my God. But she says, why does a weapon need a soul anyway? Oh, that's such a good line. Because that's going back to the whole thing with the dummy plugs. Like, why does a weapon need a soul? That goes back to the dummy plugs and the idea of people fighting in wars. She's like, why does a weapon need a soul? Well, because it needs a soul to be able to tell that difference between right and wrong. And we talked about the dummy plugs and stuff about when they're soulless and they don't have any humanity at all, then it becomes desensitized, right? The violence just becomes desensitized to anyone else watching it. It only gets in the way. Yeah, it does get in the way, but that's not a bad thing. That keeps you from going off the deep end. It keeps you human. So the idea of be human or don't be, at this point, Asuka's like, I hate this. She's like, y'all are puppets. She's like, it must be nice to be a puppet. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to have any feelings. Like, she, at this point, it's almost like Asuka doesn't want to be human because there's too much baggage with it and she can't take it. All you have to do is obey my orders. So again, she's establishing that need to have control over some aspect of her life. And so as far as being an EVA pilot, she can establish that she has some control over her life because she can control the EVA. It's her weapon to use. So the concept Ray says of them having souls terrifies Asuka because she's like, what if I don't have control of the one thing? For Asuka, being a pilot of the EVA has been the one thing that's given her a semblance, a sliver of authority, a sliver of control over her life. And for Ray to suggest that sliver of control has been a facade this entire time, that is like Asuka's worst fear. So yeah, of course she's having this conversation and it keeps getting closer to Eva's head. And then she's like, this is stupid. I'm talking to this Eva. She's like, but then an angel appears. Finally, right? An angel appears after all this time. I'm amazed it waited a month. I guess they just were using this Dead Sea Scrolls to predict when it would come again. She's like, they're still coming. Don't be. Oh my God, the episode called At Least Be Human. Or Don't Be. So the 15th angel. So the 14th angel is a water bear. And then we have the 15th angel. It looks so ethereal. This is the highest magnification. It's beautiful. It's like, it looks the most, of all of the angels at this point, that we've seen so far, this one looks the most angelic. It looks the most like an actual angel. It has wings. It has like ethereal. It kind of looks bug. Okay, here's the thing. It looks like, I wondered what those two, like, they're hands. They're like arms leaning forward, and then it has wings coming off of it. So is it like looking like an Eva, but with wings and it's glowing, and its arms are just hanging down there, and you can see its feet behind it dangling? I think that's what it is. Ugh, but that's as close as they can magnify. And it's not budging from its satellite orbit. It's maintaining a set distance from the location. Yeah, it's smart enough to know if it gets too close, it's dead. So these angels have been learning and adapting, which is still baffling to me. So we have to wait for a chance to descend and close in, or it can attack without the need to do so. And they're like, yeah, we can't be careless at this point. So we can't do anything unless the target moves within firing range. It's like, okay. The EVA units aren't capable of attacking anything in orbit. Yeah, they can't fly. Angels can't fly. And so they ask how Ray is. And they're like, Ray and the unit OO are pretty good. And she's like, good, let's get them in. Let's launch the OO unit and prepare for extreme long-range firing. And we'll use Asuka and the O2 as backup. But Asuka, her pride, she's like, you want me to back up to the OO unit, to Ray? And again, tying to Asuka's whole sense of self-worth. She's like, I have to be second string to that woman, the woman that I just argued with that got the better of me earlier. It's just like, it's like a slap to her ego, even more. And they're like, yeah, that's right. Take the rear position like we gave you an order. And she's like, you've got to be joking. And she just takes off. I'm like, Asuka, no! And then they're like, are you serious? And she's like, and Masato just takes the lead. She's like, fine, we'll let her take the lead. Masato realizes there is no point in arguing with Asuka at this point. Girl is not gonna budge. It's just not gonna happen. She's like, we'll just let her take the lead if that's what she wants. And he's like, and the one guy's like, Katsuragi, and she's like, no. She's like, what good is it gonna do to argue with her? Y'all know how she is. It's not gonna work. And then Ritsuko's like, so if she can't perform right now, this is the end for Asuka. And Masato's like, yep, looks like that. And so Maya's like, this is her last chance then, huh? And that's when Ritsuko says, we'll have to think about a replacement pilot for Unit 2. And she says, yes, ma'am. So yeah, so this is the thing. They don't have faith in her. They don't. Masato's a little harder to read in this moment. Because I do think Masato has faith in Asuka. Because Masato likes Asuka. She wouldn't put up with her if she didn't. Masato does like Asuka. And I think Masato can relate a little bit to Asuka in some way, shape, or form. We don't know exactly how, but I feel like Masato can relate to Asuka. So she does have faith in her. She's like, let's just do this. And plus Masato's like, there's no point in arguing with her. She's not going to budge. But Ritsuko is already telling Maya to think about a replacement. Like, Ritsuko has no faith in her. She's like, nope, she's gone off the deep end. She's disobeyed orders. She's not going to be able to function. She's not going to... Ritsuko and Maya have no faith in her. They don't think she's going to be able to get through this mission at all, which is really sad. And then the one guy's like, why aren't we sending out Shinji? And Shinji's been put on suspension under Commander Ikari's strict orders. And we cut to him, damn it, to Gendo doing the pose. Gendo's back to doing the pose. I'm like... We had a beautiful reprieve from that last episode. I guess that was all you got. And she's like, I suppose it's not surprising after what happened. Masato's like, yeah, your son was primordial soup for a month. Might not be the best idea to go straight back into action. Maybe not. But I love that Masato is like, just eyeing Gendo, like just watching him, like, So we go back to the inspection division, and Shinji is just stuck there. He's inside the EVA unit waiting to go. And he's just stuck there looking dejected. Like, our boy Shinji. Of course it's raining. It would have to be raining, right? It would have to be. And all the towers, it kind of mimics the Freightliner in Germany, right? It kind of mimics that, doesn't it? Of what it looks like. And so we get Asuka's like, okay, I just got to fire my laser into the sky. This angel, like this giant ass rifle shows up, And she's like, I just have to fire it. She's like, if I mess this up, they'll probably take me off Unit 2. Yes, I'm glad you're self-aware, Asuka, that they're gonna... No mistakes allowed. And the sad thing is, she probably could have got it done. The sad thing is, I think Asuka could have had the target fine if the Hallelujah beam just hadn't come down. I think she was so close. That's the sad part about the series. She was so close. And so it's, yeah, the position, Positron 20X rifle prototype, Pro-T. But yeah, so she's like trying to line it up. She's being Luke Skywalker here, trying to line it up. She's like, hurry up and get over here already. Talk about irritating. But yeah, and then that's when the beam comes up. The fucking Hallelujah beam. And they're like, warning. And they're like, Eva 2. And they're like, is it a direct energy weapon? I'm not getting any thermal readings. Her psychograph readings are agitated. Mental contamination is beginning. So she's like, they're launching a psychological attack. The Evas at this point are wanting to get in their brains. The angels, not the Evas, but the angels are attacking straight into the pilot's psyche. So we had the black marble angel, like that was the 12th angel, and it attacked Shinji kind of by like absorbing him in. And this one's like trying to peer into Asuka's soul, right? It's trying to peer into her soul. They can comprehend the mind of a human being. Yeah, and everything's just going crazy. And like she curses and fires a laser. Like I was thinking for a second, like she's fired that laser. I'm like, with the trajectory of it, is it gonna like go around and curve and like land in a city or something and blow it the hell up? Is that what's gonna happen? We don't know. Misses the angel though. Misses that damn angel. The positrons have dissipated. It's outside the firing range. I just feel for our girl. She just fires off like without control and like just fires at the city, fires at the mountains, fires until there's nothing left. There's no ammunition. And so Masato's like, give me... I love Masato like leaning over and doing her hand on the shoulder of the guy with the glasses. I love that she's like, give me analysis of the ray of light. She's like, tell me some results. It's an energy wave within the visible spectrum. It's similar to the AT field, but details are unknown. It's unknown. Possible similarity is recalculating. So it's kind of like an AT field, but not. Okay. And she's like, what about Asuka? She's in danger. The mental contamination has entered Y, whatever Y is. Okay. But yeah, she's like losing it, like not good. So I'm wondering with this mental contamination, if that's tied to the experiments that was happening with the mom. Because these angels are, the Evas are supposedly based off of Adam and off the angels. So the Evas, are the Evas the angels themselves without a soul? Are they saying that the angels are soulless and they're just trying to get to a soul? And that's why this one's like probing Asuka's mind to try to peer into her soul and like assimilate it? We don't know. But yeah, and she's, oh God. She's like, don't come inside me. And you can take that however you want to. We're doing a psychosexual analysis. You can say that that can have connotations that are not just literal, that are figurative, but the fact that Asuka is aware that something is trying to invade her mind is absolutely terrifying. Like the idea of something like probing your mind and trying to take it over. Nope. I don't blame her for being absolutely freaked out. And so then we say pain. She says pain. Oh my God. And like just, I kept thinking that Evo was going to go berserk and do the same thing like Shinji's did, where like the armor, the plating and stuff was going to start coming off. But that was when the Evo was like in control of the situation, and this is the opposite. So it does not happen. It just restricts it even more. So the words there in German, there's a Japanese word that does not get translated, but then there's also like a word right beside it. And I think it was 9. You guys will probably tell me in the comments. I think it was 9, which means no on here, but there's like Schind, which I think that's like German. So y'all have to translate below what that is. Yeah, it says Doppel ich bin. I can't read that. It's not in English. So yeah, so her Eva just freaks out. And it starts like, you see the eyes coming up, right? Just like it did in episode 9, like the eyes coming up. Its mouth hasn't opened though, so it's not gotten to that part yet, but it's still freaking out. And she, like Asuka, just not wanting it to invade her, she's like, don't look inside my mind. Like, she doesn't want anybody to see inside of it. She's like, don't dig deeper into my heart. And I love that as she's saying this, everybody there in the control room is like, what the hell? Like, they're just all freaking, like, they're just like all stunned, right? And then Masato's like, oh shit, no! You don't need to become primordial soup too! And then I love that, like, the psychograph readings, it's just a big squiggle. It's just a big spaghetti string squiggle. I'm like, that's absolutely terrifying. What the hell? Like, they're at their limit. Her mental circuits are being torn to shreds. It'll be dangerous if they're overloading more. And Masato's like, come back. Like, Masato... Ritsuko and they were looking at this, like, analytically, like scientists. Masato's like, Asuka, come back. Don't get trapped there. And she's like, that's an order. Retreat. And she says, no, never. I'd rather die here than go back now. She doesn't want to admit defeat. She's like, no. She's like, Asuka's like, I've lost it so much. She's like, because Asuka, she's like, defeat or retreat means that it's over, that her being a pilot is done, and she knows it. She said this was her last chance. She's like, Asuka's like, even though she doesn't know what Ritsuko's thinking, she's like, I know if I leave now, I may not be able to be a pilot anymore, and right now, being this pilot is the only thing that gives me a sense of self-worth. If I can't be that, I'm nothing. And she's like, I have to do this mission. She's like, I can't leave. And Masato's like, you're gonna die. And so meanwhile, they're like getting the accelerator ready on the big giant, the sniper rifle that Rey has. They're getting that ready. So superconductive guidance system. Like, as they're doing this, like, Rey is getting ready to fire. And she looks like super focused. Like, Rey is like, nah, we got this. And so Rey's like, we can do this. Everything is in launch position. And I love that grimace. That one line where Rey's like, like, it's the most emotion we've seen on her, like, this entire series. That one little grimace, like, she's like, screw it. I'm going to fire it at this stupid angel. And I love the animation of the clouds parting. Like, it does it at the very end when it all crescendos. It's beautiful. But it parts there, and it hits the angel, but it hits the AT field. And it scatters out. The power level is far too low to penetrate the A field at this range. Like, it's lost too much trajectory on the way there. The output is maximum. Anything more, it's not going to work. And meanwhile, Asuka's at her limits. What about the LCL psychological barrier? And they're like, it's no use. It's not even working as a catalyst. So the LCL fluid that's supposed to help keep all this in check isn't doing its job, surprising no one. Prioritize life support and shut out the feedback from the Eva. And she's like, yes, but I thought the live support, I thought when they did the turn off, that's when the Evas and stuff could, like, synchronize with you more, is when you shut the Evas down, which is why I think Asuka has that moment. But they're like, priority mode, she is emotionally unstable. That she's been emotionally unstable this whole time, but now it's on screen. It's as if this light is probing Asuka's psychological wavelength. Could it be the angels trying to learn about the human mind? I think so. I think these angels are trying to figure us out. And then we have this mind trip scene with Asuka. So yeah, we have her as a baby, and she's crying, and there's the monkey and the puddle of water there. Okay, so we've got quite a lot going on in this episode. So we're gonna have to bring this back around like we do. For the record, at this point, before I erase some of this, as far as our questions go, we still don't have a lot of answers to the questions. We don't have a lot of answers to questions. We do know that Evas have souls, apparently. We just don't know if the Eva's souls are their own, or if they are like the humans whose will they were embedded with, because Ritsuko said that the Evas were embedded with a human will. So before they even had pilots inside of them, they already had a soul inside of them. The pilots are just being merged with slowly over time. No big deal. But yeah, So, God, lots happen in this little segment here. So yeah, so we have Asuka's little dream of her crying with the stuffed monkey. And so she's like, I already decided I wouldn't cry anymore. And so then she looks like this angry little grumpy face. What's the matter, Asuka? It's a present from your mom. Don't you like it? No, she ripped its stomach open. I don't think she likes it. So Asuka, her crying and destroying the new toy is clearly a sign she did miss her mom. When she tells Shinji mama back then, it's like she does miss her mom. She was sad that she died, but she said she wasn't going to cry. So that lack of shedding that emotion, it just led her to act out, to like lash out. And that's just what she did. And it's like, oh my God. She's like, don't you like it? And she says, it's okay. And they're like, what's okay? She's like, and then she says, I'm not a child. And it shows like the woman. So this is the grandma from before so the grandma was telling her about the toy. She says, I'm going to grow up quickly. I don't need stuffed animals. Oh, creepy. Why? No, that's creepy. Nope. I just paused it and saw like this image of a creepy baby face. What the fudge? Nope. That's nightmare fuel. I don't like that. Nope. That thing paused on like something really freaky shit. What the hell? And then it says, Paylicious. That paused on like some nightmare fuel, like baby doll imagery that I did not need to see. No, thank you. I'm done. Done, Neon Genesis. It's over. So yeah. So her saying that she wants to grow up quickly and shed being a child. Because to her, being a child means that you're defenseless, you're powerless, you don't have control of your life, you don't have that independence that's needed here. You know, you're not in control. So at that time, go back. Oh God, that thing's so creepy. I don't like it. There's a scene of a man like with knives, with blades, like on top of a roof. Like what the fuck? So yeah, she says, so look at me. And it says Steinritter? God, this is in German. But yeah, so there's an image of a man with knives in his hands and the creepy baby, the creepy doll. And she says again, look at me. She's like, you don't pay attention to me. Is it because I'm a child? She's like, if I'm an adult, will you pay attention to me? Will you respect me? So yeah, she wants respect too. And she doesn't feel like she's getting that either. Okay, and then there's more. There's more. I don't like it. Nope. And so there was blood. There was blood like against the window. And there was something there. Again, this is in German. I cannot read it. There's more. There's creepy imagery there. Why is there so much creepy imagery in this flashback? I don't like this. It's creepy. It looks like a doll head. Nope. Is it like Adam? What is it? Oh, no. Oh, God. There's creepy baby face. This is the scariest episode of Neon Genesis. Why are you all making me watch this? I'm going to have nightmares over this. Nope. Why? I don't like horror things. So that's genuinely freaking me out. The baby's head. I don't like it at all. But yeah, there's the door. Mom, don't quit being my mom. 9. Don't quit being my mom. And there's a third door. And it says Todd. Oh, and there's a third door. Die with me. The fudge. Nope. So she says, there's a line, don't quit being my mom. And then almost as in a rebuttal or a reply, it says, die with me. So yeah, like Asuka's like, don't leave me just because you think that you can't like stay here. And the mom's like, well then just die with me. And I'm like, ugh. And the door opens up, it's like into the flames of hell. Like it looks like a hyperdrive with the flames of hell. Anna, what have you done? What is this? Shinji's dream looks tame compared to this. And then there's a fourth door. And a fifth door. And it says, Mom, please don't kill me. Oh, ugh. It's saying, Mom, don't kill me. And at this point, I'm wondering if it's like the angel trying to invade her mind, but she's so focused on her own mother that the images of her mom and the memories of her mom are merging with the angel trying to seep in. And so her saying, please don't kill me, she's telling it to the angel too. Oh my God. And it keeps saying 9. And the door opening up. Ugh. I'm not your doll. So yeah, so her saying, I am not your doll. She's like, I'm not just a plaything that you can play with and discard. And just like, no, over and over again. God, I'm going to think and live for myself. So she's like, I want to be independent and think and live for myself and not for anyone else. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then like the door and becoming red. Oh my God, the red inside. Yep. And like all these doors, I don't need a mom or dad. I'm going to live on my own. So that independence. Okay. She's like, so don't make me remember this. She's like, I don't remember these emotions. Oh my God. I'd forgot about it. Don't dig it up again. So she's like, she'd repressed. She is like, I have repressed my bad memories. But had she? Because I feel like she keeps remembering things. So I'm like, maybe she hadn't repressed as much as she thought, right? I don't need any of this bad stuff anymore. Stop it already. Oh. And like, she's like, then please, Asuka. Oh my God. And the creepy doll hanging, die with me. And she's like, okay, I'll die with you, Mom. But so please don't quit being my mom. I'll do what you say as long as you don't leave me. So yeah, there's the idea that she, at one point, she was willing to go along as long as she wasn't left from her mom. God, this is terrifying. The doll just hanging there? Anna, why? When did this become a horror series? I don't know what you mean. Who are you? Oh, and then there's that idea. She's like, I'll die with you if you just don't leave me, Mom. And then the mom forgets who she is, which ties back to when she was in the hospital or the science lab, wherever they're at, looking at her mom. And her mom didn't know who she was. She thought she was just some girl. She thought the doll was Asuka. So Asuka, it's her fear that her mom won't ever recognize her as her own daughter and won't love her back. That's like been one of Asuka's constant things, is wanting affection but not getting it in return. And then we have her doing the thing 4 times. I'm Asuka. Nice to meet you. So it's funny because when she turns around, it's the hair flip is a little bit different. But we have the 4 moments in this. We have the hair flip. We have the greeting. We have the greeting. I'm Asuka Langley. So are you? Nice to meet you. We have her like yelling at, it was yelling at Toji or Shinji, one of the two. What are you, stupid? Her yelling at them. And then she says, this is my chance. We have the my chance moment of her getting accomplishment. And then we have, so look at me, right? And the so look at me is tied to her exposing herself. Okay. So, and then it like cuts out there and she says, this isn't me. So she says this is not her. Isn't me. So what these scenes represent with her is that she has like, and I guess you could tie the hair flip and the greeting together. Maybe they showed us that 4 times just so we could see it. Where, yeah, she's like, oh, I guess the greeting is there. So we have her being like the sunshine, happy girl. We have her being the sunshine, happy girl. Her being mean to the guys. We have her being ambitious. And then her being sexual. or like sexualizing, I guess you could say. And she's saying that's not her. She says, me being this happy, sunshine-go-lucky girl who's like, she's like, that's not me. She's like, I'm not sunshine and happy. She's like, I'm depressed and miserable. And then she's like, her being mean to the boys where she's yelling at them. She's like, that's not me. She's like, I didn't mean to yell at them. She's like, I wasn't trying to be mean to them. It was a defense mechanism. It wasn't my intent to be cold to them. I'm not that type of person. Like, I'm depressed. Yes, I'm not sunshine. I'm depressed. I don't mean to be mean to the boys. It's just a defense mechanism. I'm really grateful that they have this friendship for me. And then when she says, you know, her being ambitious, she's like, I'm seeking this ambition and sense of accomplishment, but that's not really how I feel. It's just what I think I need to have to be in control. And then her saying, so look at me, and exposing herself. She's like, I don't really want sex, but I just want somebody to hold me and care about me. And all I've seen my life is these other women do that and get a response. She's seen the woman doctor with the man who maybe was her dad. We don't know. But then Masato with Kaji, she's like, they all get Shinji with Rei. She's like, they seem to be doing something for them. So why can't I get that? I'm trying to do the same thing they are. Why isn't it getting me results? And she said, but that's not how I really am. She's like, that's not me at all. God. And so, yeah, just getting that repeated over and over again. And then everything gets redder and redder. Like, she's standing in the center of that beam and it's red all around her. Oh my God. It's great. And so, yeah, everything is just red. And then, is this the last time for it? Maybe? And she says, it isn't me. And then we have her like trudging through the streets. And she's dancing. I love she's dancing on the cobblestone. She's like spinning around and dancing. I thought the choreography of that was really well done. Like her dancing. Her dancing through the crowd. And you can kind of tie it to the monkey doll. You know, like the whole dance monkey dance. Like you just do what we tell you to do. You could tie that to what she's doing. But then she's on that narrow little line. That narrow road that she's walking. And it's above the train tracks. It's above the tracks. Like if we go back to the scene where she was seeing Shinji and Rei on the other side of the tracks, she's trying to cross over and reach them, right? And when she looks over, she sees somebody in the distance. Now, who the hell this is? And people start going past her in cloaks. Like a mob. Like a flash mob. And they won't let her pass. Okay, but the face. So the face, that's her mom under the cloak, right? And then, so we have, I'm trying to see what's like, they're all her mother grabbing her. And then she can't see the figure that's in front of her. And she says, help me, Mr. Kaji. And it all looks like, but are they her? Part of it looks like they're either her or her mom. So the cloaked figures are herself. I think they're herself, because at one point you can kind of see like the little hairpiece on one of them that's uncloaked there, but they're all in red, right? So it's harder to tell. But yeah, so she's saying basically her worst enemy is herself. She's like, help me. She's like, she's being smothered by her own preconceived notions of how she should act and be. And then we cut to her and Kaji leaving her saying, you're still a child. But then there's Shinji there and she feels abandoned. Like she's like, why are you there? She's like, why? You won't do anything. You won't help me. So she talks about Shinji. She's like, you won't help me. You won't help me or do anything. So why are you getting all this attention? The attention that I'm not getting. And she's like, and that's kind of thing too. And we see Shinji rescuing her. We see her rescuing. She's like, you won't help me, but he did help her. That's the thing. And she knows that, right? But it shows her like kissing him. And she's like, nothing happened from the kiss. She's like, that didn't help. So it's just like all these moments. She's like, she expected Shinji to be able to give her that physical contact and give her the emotions that she thought she would get, like Masato has gotten. But her kissing him didn't do anything. He did rescue her, which she didn't get the sense of accomplishment from him because he had to rescue her. She can't get the independence and maturity that she seeks because Shinji's there and gets some of the attention, even though it's not appropriately placed there, but she thinks it is. and then she can't get like the oral stimulation to build the relationship. The kiss does nothing. So for Asuka, she just can't get a win, right? You won't even hold me. You won't hold me. So she's like, I wanted that physicality, and we see her throwing up. That you won't hold me. So then we get these drawings, and she says, no one will. And then we see these drawings. So we see a house that looks like it has blood all around it, and it looks like maybe there's Shinji inside of it. And then there's these drawings of there's someone with black hair and a knife stabbed in them, that maybe that's Masato. And then there's something with like a purple. There's a red being there. What the fudge is that? Oh my god, that creepy doll thing. Nope, don't like it. And there's a picture of someone. Oh, it's like, is that the Lance of Longinus? On top of the house and the tower, and there's some like man. There's a man that's like crucified. Is that supposed to be what is that in blue? Is that Gendo? What is happening? This drawing is freaky, but no, I don't like the imagery. I don't like the creepy imagery of the face with the eyes. That's her mom. Nope. Why are you people dumping this nightmare fuel on me? What are we doing? And her crying, she says, so look at me. And then she's by herself, like alone on the... So there's the creepy drawings. Awesome. Creepy drawings. And then we have her, she's naked on the ground of the playground. She's not in the swing. She's not on the monkey bars or anything. She's just naked in the playground itself, on the ground. Like she's not even allowed to play on the equipment. She doesn't get to have a childhood. Basically, that's the thing that sucks here, is that she wanted to grow up quickly, but in doing so, she didn't get to experience any of a childhood or any of that growth that comes within it. So she just feels like she's completely out of balance. She is not meeting the well-balanced, warm, and caring result that this would suggest if you achieve it. She's not getting that. Nope. And they ask, are you lonely? Let me get a picture of that. Are you lonely? Is what herself asks. Or it's funny because the Evas, it seems like the image of whatever, it's either the Eva or the angel. One of the two, when they invade their mind, is like a child form of them, which is interesting. It does that with Shinji, does that with her, which is interesting. And I love that they ask again, are you lonely? And it goes to answer, and she says no. And the minute she says no, it just like explodes. The stuffing explodes, and she says, stay away from me. I'm going to live on my own. And we see all of this imagery, which is basically the images from the past, from this episode before. And she cuts the monkey's head off. She says, stay away from me. Okay. I'm going to live on my own. Okay, and here we go. This is something here. And we have, what, are you stupid? Yeah. So, and she says, no, she basically says that I can live on my own. And so we have the line, what, are you stupid? And it's all in red. There's a lot of red in this episode. Quite a lot. And it shows her like all the images of her. And she's like, say, do you love me? And as this is going on, says, say, do you love me? And so then as the head falls to the ground, she says, I won't rely on anyone. Shit. Yep. I won't rely on anyone. And we see all this imagery. Do you really love me? That's the thing. Yep. Do you really love me? All Asuka wants, right? And so then there's a big moment here where there's a whole bunch of imagery at once. So we have all different things. We have like, I can live on my own. And we see her like with this image. Yep. I can live on my own. And her with the monkey doll before it was... And she's smiling. And that smile... no. You big liar. That whole I can live on my own. You big liar. Oh my god. That is the creepiest shit. Nope, it turns into the doll. Why? Why? I hate this. Why? No! And the doll turning red. Oh my god. So yeah, there's gonna be a little thing of words here. And so I want to go back and get some of these in order. And so that may take me a second, so just bear with me. Huh. So yeah, okay, that took me a while. That took me a while to write all those down. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, so there were a lot. I think there were more words in hers than there were in Shinji's back in episode 18 or whatever. I think there was more words. But she had mother, father, privation, security, contact, clearly present, reparations, reactive formation, denial, separation, evasion, dormant, obsessive compulsive, attachment behavior, opposition, oblivion, psychological breakdown, dependence, emptiness, presumption, masculine protest, which is her like going against Shinji and them, sympathy, pity, shadow. I couldn't tell if it was military or momentary assimilation, one of the two. And then in big letters, don't be, like kept flashing on the screen. And then I'm not a doll, don't violate me, die with me, it hurts, stop it, mental contamination, I hate you so much, reason for existing, confidence, childhood experience, hostility, and then death. Girl has got some issues. And this thing is like tapping into her mind and she just can't take it anymore. And she just couldn't. She's like, my mind has been defiled. And she's like, Mr. Kaji, I've been defiled. What will I do? I've been defiled. God. And that's so... Because back in that first scene at the opening of the episode, when she was wanting to get with Kaji, she's like, with you, it's okay, because she trusted Kaji. She loved Kaji and she trusted him. And she was okay with him reciprocating those feelings. He just didn't do it. And here, she's like, I've been violated and defiled by something that I don't trust, that it was against my will. She's like, basically, I've been mind raped by this angel. And I didn't want them to do it. And I've been defiled. And it's the worst thing in the world. Which, yeah. And she just slumped over in that Eva form. And the light slowly fading out. And they're like, the unit 2 is shut down. The life support has developed a problem. I feel like Maya, your sole goal and job in this entire series is to tell us how we've screwed up. Just doing your job, Maya. That's all you gotta say. The pilot is entering a dangerous state. Yeah, she's flatlining. No change in target. Relative distances remain the same. The probability of it moving within fire range is 0.02%. Good odds. And then Masao was like, do we just ship it up? Do we ship Rey up in the air to try to snipe it from the air? No, it'll get knocked down before it gets up there. So that's not going to work. It'll be all over if we get shot down on the approach. And then Shinji says, I'll go out in the O1 unit. Shinji's like, I'll do it. He's like, you bitches needed me, now I'm going to do it. Again, Shinji gets denied because Fuyu-chan's like, no, the target corrodes the pilot's psyche. You don't need to go out there, Shinji. We saw what it did to you last time. No. And Shinji's like, well, then I just don't have to get hit. He's like, then we have to avoid the corrosion of the O1 unit. Not Shinji. I like the Gendo's like, we need to avoid the corrosion of the O1 unit. Son, don't care about. O1 unit, that's a piece of metal we got to keep intact. And he's like, then I just have to keep from getting hit, right? I love this design of Shinji. Shinji tries to take charge. He's like looking at Fuyu-chan and Gendo like, let me do this. And he's like, your success is not guaranteed. And he's like, but at this rate, Asuka is going to, and he's like, I don't care. I'm like, Gendo! Your son is trying to help. Your son is trying to do the right thing and save Asuka. Like, he's trying to go in there. He's like, let me do this. And Gendo says, nah. I'm just like, Gendo. Nope. He says, Ray, instead, go down into Dogma and use the spear. And just do that. And Fuyuchan's like, the spear of Longinus. I love how Fuyutsuki just comes in there at the moment and he's like, you can't possibly mean. It's a very like anime villain move, but I love it. The spear of Longinus. Ikari, that is. And he's like, we cannot reach the target's AT field in orbit, and that's the only way to bring it down. It's our only option. It's like, hurry. So I will play devil's advocate for Gendo. I will play devil's advocate for Gendo in this moment. Because Gendo is at least making a proactive state to destroy the angel. Now, that being said, the angel was headed... The angel hasn't moved. It stayed up in orbit with its Hallelujah beam on Asuka this whole time. So, there's that. But I will give Gendo the benefit of the doubt. I'll play devil's advocate for Gendo and say that he is helping Asuka by going to such extreme measures as to use the Lance of Longinus to bring down the angel. That's pretty extreme. And in doing so, he's also keeping his son Shinji out of danger. So there is a chance, I can see somebody in the comments arguing, saying, well, Gendo doing this is actually saving Shinji, because Shinji, if he went out there, would be driven by his emotions. He might make a mistake. He says he's not going to get hit, but we know Shinji's track record, so that's probably wouldn't have happened. So Gendo is, even though it's a more heartless approach to say he doesn't care, he actually is thinking about Shinji and in turn about Asuka by going to the extreme measures of using Rei, who is the most unemotionally compromised person in this situation, to drive out the angel. So I will give Gendo props that you can tell where he's coming from, but God, the way he says it to Shinji is just so blunt and unmoving. It's like, God. And he says, hurry. And then this is the point where Masato makes a mistake. She said, but contact between an Eva and Adam might cause a third impact. Like, she's like, that's what I heard from my boyfriend who y'all killed. Like, she seems concerned. It's far too dangerous. Commander Ikari, please don't do this. And Gendo's looking at her like, how do you know all this? Like, that's just like the look on his face. And she's just like, no, you're not right, Masato. Kaji's information may not have been correct. And then she's like, so it was a lie, a deception. Masato is, God, that look on her face when she looks over and realizes that things are not good. I'm like, Masato, honey, I feel for you right now, but yes, it was a lie, a deception. Contact with an angel was not the cause of the second impact. Oh, shit, no! So yeah, just gonna throw it out here that the second impact was not, as far as we know, an angel making contact with Adam. Doesn't seem like it's going to cause the third impact. So the question is there, then they said a third impact is coming. What's leading to it then? If it's not the angel coming in contact with Adam, is it the angels taking over one of the Eva pilots, taking over a kid and like soaking up a soul? What is that involved? But she's realizing the second impact was not what we thought it was. So she's like, damn, did my boyfriend die for nothing? The idea that in the 22nd episode of a 26 episode series, we're suddenly realizing that one of our narrators may have been unreliable. It's great. It's a great time. And then Central Dogma levels 10 to 15 have been unlocked. Go down there, Ray, on your little hook there. So what did they say there? There was something in the episode that I was like, the way that they phrased it, I was like, what was that? It said levels 16 to 20 have now been unlocked. But there's something right before it. Oh, it said the 6th strength of the Malebog. Whatever that Malebog means. Okay, Malebog. I am going to look that up real quick. I think if I just look up Malebog, that it won't be tied to Evangelion. Maybe not. Malebog. What is its meaning? It is Dante's The 8th Circle of Hell, which is the evil sacs. The name reflects the structure of a circle made up of 10 ditches, the bulge. Each ditch is lower than the previous one, and they're all linked together by a number of bridges. Oh, okay. So the 8th... That's why we had all the 8s in this episode. So we funny that we had 8:10 a.m. We had 1800. We had like the 81, and now we have the 8th. Yeah, basically the male Boge is related to the 8th circle of hell. Well, there's 9 circles of hell, right? So what's below that? Oh my gosh, that's great. That is great. Past the 6th trench of the male Boge. At this point, it's like in Neon Genesis, like, look at what we can reference. Nice. So the 3rd impact won't happen, at least not because of this. No, it's scheduled to happen according to the Dead Sea Scrolls, but not because of the angel coming in contact with Adam, is what Masato's thinking. So, girl, you just revealed that you know this info that you're not supposed to know. And I know it's like a tense situation and nobody's probably going to address it now, but they know she knows now. No! And she's like, God, then what caused a 2nd impact? She's becoming as obsessed with as Kaji was. She wants to know answers. She wants to learn the truth. And I'm like, girl, the truth isn't worth finding. No, just let it go. And then so we go into this trench here where there is this little thing that takes her up to where Adam is. And meanwhile, Fuyu-chan is like, hey. Fuyu-chan's like, Kari, are we not getting ahead of ourselves? Should we go this far already? I love that he's like leaning over the bench being like Gendo, hey, I know in the last episode I was proven to be maybe a sound voice of reason and you might be an unhinged monster, but maybe we shouldn't do this. I love this. I love the composition of this conversation with Gendo. It's so freaking good. The committee has already started mass producing the EVA series. So this is our chance, Fuyutsuki. So a chance for what? So that's the crazy thing is I thought on the surface, are Gendo and them, do they not want the EVAs mass produced? Do they not want there to be a massive lineup? Is Gendo not wanting that? So does Gendo not want all the EVAs? Because it seems from this series that Gendo is in direct conflict with the committee, even though he's working for them. It seems like whatever the committee is saying, Gendo is trying to stay a step ahead. So the question is, does Gendo and Fuyu even want there to be all these EVAs? Maybe not. Maybe the production of the EVAs got out of control and Gendo just wanted, is this like, Gendo's like, we just needed one god. We just needed one EVA unit. And then it suddenly started to become this paganistic thing where there's all kinds of gods and stuff and we can't have that. So I'm like false idols or something. And so is he not wanting all these EVAs in mass production? Because it'd be too much to keep track of. It'd get beyond his scope and beyond his control. He can control 1 to 3 pretty handedly, but 13, maybe not so much. And so when he says this is our chance, Fuyutsuki, I'm like, chance for what? You're getting rid of the Lance of Longinus. How is this your chance? He's like, but this is, we cannot turn back time. But we do have the power to spur it onward. To spur it onward, yeah, no. So yeah, he's like, we have the power to keep time going. I'm like, well, it's going to go on regardless, right? I'm like, Gendo, I don't know like where this is headed. And Fuyu seems like, what are we doing? I'm like, quit spouting off your cryptic mumbo jumbo. So there's a little ship. So there's this little sea, this trench. And all this LCL, I'm assuming that's LCL fluid. I'm assuming because it's orange. I'm assuming that's what it is. And the boat is like maybe collecting it for the EVA units. And he's like, the old men will not stand for this. Like the committee is not going to be happy if you get rid of the spirit, the Lance of Longinus. He's like, they're not going to stand for this. We must finish everything before Seal begins to act. So the question is, they're on a time clock. They are trying to outrace Seal. And Seal is producing all these EVAs. So is Seal going to be the 3rd impact cause? There's still so much we don't know about the 2nd impact and this projected 3rd impact. There's still so much we don't know. And we're getting answers, but Fuyu clearly is not happy about using Lance of Longinus because if once they use it, like Adam starts to go like what the fudge is with Adam? It's like, what is even happening? We have to begin before they begin to act. And so then Rey takes out the lance that was used to pin him in place on this little cross. And the moment they pull out, it would be unwise for us to lose unit 2 right now. So yeah, so the spear, it's had the LCL inside of it. When the spear came out, there's like little bursts of the orange blood. But then, so then this Akira mother trucker, like just begins to like erupt in all, it grows legs. The legs have legs upon legs. That may be, but using the Spear of Longinus without Seal's permission would be troublesome. And he's like, don't care. A reason need only exist. Anything beyond that is insignificant. Better to ask for forgiveness than permission. That is Gendo literally in a can. He's like, it's better if we just ask for forgiveness later than permission now. That's literally his philosophy. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, the fact that it grew legs, like it's almost like the Lance of Longinus was restricting it from growing even further. So now that it's no longer there and they can't retrieve it, what's going to stop Adam from keeping on growing? What's going to keep him tied to the little cross? What have you done, Gendo? And Fuyu-chan is just like, a reason? What you're looking for is an excuse, isn't it? Like an excuse to use it. So he's like, you just want an excuse that you can pin it on. You want a scapegoat Unit 2 as being the reason you had to use the lance. The brainwaves have dropped to 0.06. So yeah, so Fuyu-chan is saying like, you're not in it to save Asuka. You're not in it to save your sons. No, you're just in it because you want to spur on your own timeline and get things back in control for you. And so if you can screw Seal over and mess up their timeline, all the better. But I'm like, now that the lance is gone, what's keeping Adam there? So, because that seemed to be the only thing stopping it from moving. No. And so, yeah. So then we have Rey popping up with this lance like she do. You know, it's funny. Back when we were first introduced to the Lance of Longinus, that was like, what, in episode 14, I think? Yeah, episode 14. We ended episode 14, and I was like, man, we'll never see Rey get to use that thing. Little did we know that episodes later, and Masada's like, so that's the Spear of Longinus. And again, Fuyu's like, I guess we'll just do it Gendo once. But this thing, this spear, it becomes like, the lance becomes like a spear. And it like all connects together. Like the tech of it is so weird. And it like has a spiral. And it just like forms together. The animation in this sequence is freaking gorgeous. Like it was jaw dropping. I think my jaw was on the floor. Because it burst through the clouds. And then there it goes, this big red giant spear that Rey hates. And then it bursts through the AT field. It's strong enough to burst through it. Like it spirals out and drills through it. And then but it's almost like the angel wasn't even materialized. It's like the angel was just like a beam of light. It was just light. It didn't even have like a physical body. It just... So that's what that lance can do. And you just threw it into the atmosphere, Gendo. Just whatevs. Because it just jettisoned it off to space. It was destroyed. Okay. He's like, what? He's like, what about the Spear of Longinus? And they're like, yeah, it broke through the astronautical velocity. It's moving into lunar orbit. He's like, recovering it will be nearly impossible. Yeah, he's like, at present, we don't have any means to bring back that much mass. Oh my God. And Gendo. And then the lance is just floating off in space. Your one thing holding Adam together, keeping it all together. You just chucked it into orbit. Awesome. Great. But Asuka's saved, so we're all good. You know, we got to bring her back. Use Route 67. And then what about Asuka? She's life signs confirmed. The quarantine due to the contamination has been removed. And Masato has had such the expressions this chapter, or this episode, she's like, And so then I like the caution do not enter image of Asuka as she's kneeling in the same pose in front of the Eva. The fudge. I'm also realizing that throughout the entire like mental breakdown she was having, the colors you constantly saw were orange, green, and purple, which are primary colors. They're secondary colors. They're not primary. And they're the colors that are on her Eva unit aside from red. And the thing about it is, they're secondary colors. So they're not even the main colors. They're mixed from other colors. So even in her own psychological breakdown, she can't be the primary color. She's got to be second in charge. Sad days. And so then Shinji shows up, and I like that he's reflected in the puddle. And again, the puddle we saw Asuka in the memory with the monkey doll where she was crying and there was a puddle behind her. So in this, there's a puddle in front of her with Shinji's reflection. And Shinji tries to cheer her up. He's like, I'm glad for you, Asuka. And she's like, shut up, what's there to be glad about? Which, in Asuka's defense, what is there to be glad about? She's like, I didn't win. I had a psychological breakdown. An angel tried to enter my mind and basically violated me against my will. I couldn't save anybody. The person I hate the most saved me. And then you're here offering the sympathy. You have no clue anything about how I feel. She's like, Asuka's like, I really don't feel like talking to you right now. Of all the people, she had to be the one to save me. I had to be saved by her. I rather would have died than be saved by her. And Shinji, like, it's like, I hate it. I hate it. I hate everyone. And that's where we end the episode. No big deal. No big deal. Oh my God. So, is this episode an embodiment of the anal stage of the psychosexual development? Yes, I think so. So I think we can do a big old check on that one. That worked out just great. So next is going to be the phallic stage, which we kind of got a preview of it. So if we're going by episode 23, which is about, penis envy, castration anxiety, fears of the father, and this seems more Shinji related, of trying to possess the mom to defeat the father. This seems more Shinji related, episode 23. This episode here is Asuka related. I do hope that Shinji can reach Asuka. I do hope for that, but at this point I'm like, I don't know what he's gonna do. I feel like Asuka, but here's the problem. There are some people that need, like, if I'm upset, I do like to be alone. I do like to be alone if I'm upset, because I don't like people bothering me, getting in my space. I want to just be alone for a while, decompress, calm, and collect myself. But Asuka's not one of those people. Asuka thinks she's one of those people. She thinks that if she's alone, she'll be fine. But no, Asuka, everything about Asuka that we know tells us that she doesn't want to be alone. She wants physical contact. She wants intimacy. She wants a relationship. She wants people to be connected to her. She wants people to see her and understand her and try to reach her and love her. And in her life, she's not really engaged in that. Nothing seems genuine to her anymore. Even when it is genuine, it doesn't seem that way to her. She's forced herself into a corner. That kind of goes back to the whole notion of Destrudo that Melania the Severed brought up. The idea that she keeps, it's aggression, it's self-destruction. It is, it's basically repetition compulsion. She keeps going back to these same emotions and repeating them in all the situations she's involved in. She can't move forward from them. So she's very self-destructive. Like the Destrudo is heavy with Asuka, especially in this episode. I know I've talked for over 2 hours. And then we've got the mini recap, so it's probably like 2.5 hours at this point. But oh my gosh. What an episode. The whole thing with Fuyu-chan and Gendo and talking about using the Lance of Longinus that's now just orbiting around the earth. This one spear that could possibly stop the angels. It's just floating now. It's just... So what's gonna happen with Adam? We still don't know who shot Kaji. We still don't know who shot Kaji. We still don't know what happened to Adam. We still don't know many things. Yeah, we still have, we're getting more. I'm glad we finally got Asuka's backstory, because that's been something that's been bothering me this whole series, is that we've had a lack of Asuka backstory. And I feel like Rey's going to be last. We know Shinji's backstory. Now we're getting Asuka. Rey is going to be one of the last ones is Rey, because Rey's the one shrouded in mystery. Rey's the one that doesn't have any records. So, yeah. I'm worried about Masato. She's revealed that she knows a bit more than perhaps she should. Kaji's gone. And so, it's not looking good. It's not looking good, y'all. And now there's even more Evas being developed, so... And the fact that that Ritsuko was so willing to just pick one of Shinji's classmates to be the new number 2 pilot... So, still lots of questions. Some things answered. Things are getting a little bit clearer. We know we have an unreliable narrator that we don't know how the second impact happened. It had something to do with man. Who knows? I'm sure we'll find out by the end of the series. But Now that we don't know exactly what caused the second impact, there's question Masato has of how the third impact will happen. What is Gendo's plan overall? We don't know Gendo's entire plan. We know that Gendo wants to play by his own rules and go by his own script, not Seal's, but we don't know what that script is. What's the end goal? What's the end result? Fuyu, I feel like Fuyu is going to try to betray Gendo at some point and he's going to die. But I could be wrong. But yeah, I have lots of thoughts, lots of things. I still have lots of comments for episodes 20 and 21 to break down. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I know that to avoid spoiling, it may be hard to comment, but there's so much with this episode, imagery-wise. I think there is a lot to talk about that doesn't involve spoilers, but I don't want to be spoiled. We only have 4 episodes left, and then into Evangelion. So close I can taste it. But this episode is freaky and nightmare fuel, and I'm going to try not to think about it because that was terrifying. So, the scariest episode of Eva yet. When I signed up to watch this show, I thought I was getting into sci-fi. I did not know I was getting into psychological horror. So, fun times! But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back really soon with more Neon Genesis Evangelion. Bye.